commands, God precedes, God does all these things, and it's God, not you, if the reason you're saying that is because God knows stuff and God creates stuff, well, then I agree by the way you've explained it. But the way you've explained it is taking a lot of liberties going, building, God knows stuff and God creates stuff. So the simpler way to say that is not God orders, God commands, God does stuff. It's just God knows stuff, God creates stuff. But if they want to nuance their explanation by saying, that is why we say God orders our steps, God commands us, you can do nothing without God, well, then sure, on that technical reasoning, I agree, but there's simpler ways to say that, like just repent and believe the gospel.
So Jesse, my great victory is that Nate is discovering the difference between primary and secondary cause.
I haven't changed my belief one time. I have not changed my
articulated.
I just can't believe that that's actually what you Calvinists have believed this whole time. So that's the revelation. And I'm like, in 500 years, like,
why really bad at explaining it, I guess.
Well, so is everyone else. Like, why didn't Calvin say that? Like, you would have had a whole lot less pushback from our what?
So did the Reformed Confession say that?
Okay.
It's literally Westminster Confession.
Well, then you guys are bad at PR. Like, seriously,
or you're not at studying. I know I've had plenty of conversations with you about your reading. My good friend, whom I love.
I don't think we've ever really gone into the weeds about Calvinist stuff. Maybe other stuff. And if it was philosophy, then I immediately check out.
Yeah, I mean, philosophy is usually. I'm not even nearly in philosophy as much as I used to be. I've been, for the past month, just about month and a half now, I've been researching tongues.
What do you think philosophy is, Jess?
Well,
the enumerations, what is it called? Enumerations. Enumerations of, armchair individuals who like to speculate about things which they cannot know.
Chris, what would happen if you're trying to recruit me for Calvinism, Jesse's studying tongues, and ends up going to Apostle Sean's church?
I mean, it'd be a 1-for-1 swap, I guess.
What's up, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, Chris has a lot of technical terms describing Christianity, and I just wonder, like, is that a qualification for being a Calvinist?
Highly intellectual? Seems like it.
No, like, it's like using terms like Dianetics, even though he doesn't use that term. I mean, he'll use, hermeneutics or apologetics or
Dianetics, that's a Scientology thing, right?
I know, but what I'm saying is, it sounds like people make up terms to have Christian technical conversations. It just seems so unnecessary to me. I mean, simplify it.
Right. I can simplify it. God knows stuff, God creates stuff. Simplified.
Well, I've heard God's only power is knowing what he truly is.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that, Nate, is that, look, even that definition is just not satisfying of Calvinism because it doesn't get into the question of any kind of form of causal determinism, right? Just
causal determinism. I'll throw that word in there real quick.
The Arminians, right? The Arminians agree that God knows all things. The disagreement comes from which is what separates us. On what basis does he know these things, right? Does he know them because he has causally decreed them to occur? Or does he know them simply because they are facts that exist outside of himself, of which he came to learn when he pondered which possible world he wanted to actualize?
But if you find someone that takes that position, which Chris is convinced Chris is convinced is more, I'm convinced is less, because I've been talking about Calvin Arminian for like 15 years, and I only in the last few weeks actually got to the bottom of apparently what 99.9% of Calvinists will agree to, and the reason they say the reason they build their Calvinist theology or the Reformed theology. I just understood that in the last few weeks. So even though my position hadn't changed, I now have a better understanding of why the Reformed position is the Reformed position. It's not just because someone's like, I really want to be good. God, let me be good. Can I come seek you? And God's like, no, I'm passing over you and like dragging them to the pits of hell just because he wants to. It's all based on because God is the only one that creates stuff and God knows everything. So because of that, I'm like, well, if I just got this, if you set down all these other non-Calvinist people and explain it to them just that way, they're going to, I believe, if they're honest, come out with my understanding, which is, well, of course we're Bible-believing Christians. Jesus is the only creator, and God knows all things, just like Jesus. So, and I guess we'll have to.
I'm confused. That's why Calvinism is not bad.
Well, I'm saying maybe we should do a straw poll, because if there's, I think more non-Calvinists would say, yes, I believe that. And now I understand the Calvinists because they say things like what you just said, which is, well, is it determined because of this or because of that? But the reason we're saying God is responsible for all this stuff stems from he knows and he creates. Well, then it's like, it's an easy pill to digest. It's like, okay, well, we disagree with the way you're wording it. We think it's a lot of unnecessary hoops to jump through to get to your conclusions. But if your conclusions are based on God creates and God knows, then sure. But then if you find Arminians who are like, well, no, God doesn't actually know the future. He knows everything that could possibly happen, and he's prepared for anything like that. I guess you guys are convinced that's more. I'm convinced that's less. But maybe we should take a poll.
Well, it's not more or less. It's just like the most, like for example, the most consistent Arminians are open theists, right? Because they want to say God knows all things, and he knows that what will occur, but they simultaneously want to defend a libertarian free will. Well, Arminians are just inconsistent on that, insofar as the majority of them are attempting to define a libertarian free will as the basis to do otherwise. So I don't know why you like analyze it the way you do. It's like more or less, what is the unifying, what are the commonalities, what's the unifying issue? Like, I don't even know why, I'm not even exactly sure why you're focusing on just like, it seems to be like an element of commonality between the two camps on the basis of God knowing all things, and then people not being able to do other than which God knows. Because while that is an element of commonality, right, that's not what distinguishes the two camps, because just precisely in virtue of the case that we both agree to that. Like, at least not all Arminians, but like all Wesleyans do, right? They all affirm God's omniscience.
What is an Arminian and a Wesleyan? I mean, aren't they all just Christians? And is it not just all in the New Testament? Is Calvin Jesus? Like, why do you guys even do this to yourselves? I don't understand it.
Well, hang on, I'm trying to not do this to ourselves. That's the whole point. So, Jesse, the reason I focus on this is because that's really an eye-opening thing. Because people,
I'm sorry.
Didn't you say you weren't going to a meeting today or something like that?
At 9:30.
Okay, fine. Peace be with you. But the reason I'm focusing on that is because when I just kind of use it as a throwaway comment, Chris is like, welcome to Calvinism. I'm like, what? It's like, that is exactly what Calvinists believe. You're a Calvinist. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I believe God knows all things, like James says, and I believe God, obviously, like this is like Christianity, like 101, like less than 101. It's like, does God create? Does God know? He's like, yes. And then apparently that is the basis from which all Calvinist doctrine flows. So no matter what, let's test me, right? So make a Calvinist point, and then let's trace that back to, is the reason you're saying that because God is the only creator, which means God has to create something first, otherwise it can't be actualized, and then God knows exactly everything that's going to happen. And if it can be traced back to that, then that's exactly why I'm making such a focal point on it, because that takes all the ammunition out of people's guns. Like, it basically renders this war moot.
Yeah, I'll make the point, but I think that almost everything else that you said after that is actually not connected to the point at all. So, but here's the point. Okay, so God causally determines your choice of faith in Jesus Christ, whether it be positive or negative.
Right. Is the reason traced back to because God knows all things, he knows exactly what's going to happen, and is the reason that it's not totally your libertarian free choice because you can't create stuff. If it's your libertarian free will,
I think you're making it too complicated. I don't think I can answer that.
well, just
You're adding too many qualifiers. Just ask one qualifier at a time.
this all goes back to two things. Does God know stuff, and does God? Okay, so
Yeah, but I'm denying that, right? If that's the only qualifier, then I'm denying. I'm saying no, it does not go back to simply because God knows it. Right?
the second one is what I'm. Okay, the second one's what I'm trying to focus on. So is the reason you can't. What was it? Okay, the reason God has to choose you, you can't choose God, is because if it was up to you to choose God, then effectively that would mean you're the creator. You're creating the existence in which that is possible.
Okay, so there's some implications that will be born out of that, but in effect, yes, out of logical necessity. I mean, you're not creating, right? So it's very nuanced. Even if I represented the alternative position accurately, right? It is not an issue. It's not even something I would argue against them on by saying like, oh, you're making man the creator. No, not exactly, right? Because in effect, Molinism is effectively just saying, well, God foreknows. He just knows that man is the final and ultimate basis from which his decision of salvation comes. God just knows that. But it doesn't mean that man created it in the same way that God created it. He's the final grounding for that fact, right? There's nothing beyond him. So in that sense, man's decision remains autonomous from God, right? So insofar as you can say autonomy is, an indication of like deity or creatorship or something like that, sure, but it's not in the same way like creatio ex nihilo or creating the facts out of nothing. Man doesn't have that power. Those aren't just inherent necessary facts of this person in that possible world that God comes to learn, right?
You said I added a lot of qualifiers. Well, right. So
I know that, but I'm not asking you a question. If I were asking you a question, I would ask you a one qualifier based question, right?
I just asked you a yes or no question. You're like, it's nuanced.
Okay. Well, I was answering, but I wasn't asking you a question. Is my point. If I'm asking you a question, I would ask you a very simple question. If I'm giving you a more complex answer, right? Because it's a difficult answer. But sure, he becomes a creator in the idolatrous goldfish, in the like idolatrous sense, but not many in the other like ontological senses,
Right. So because in the ontological sense, God is the only one who can like create molecules or space or whatever. Right. God's the only one that can actually create stuff. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I'm told by Chris and Matt Slick, maybe our brains are just incompatible and we're talking past each other and we'll have to leave it there. But as far as, Matt Slick and, Chris and a couple other Calvinists have said, they trace so far, maybe we'll get to a Calvinist doctrine that doesn't trace back to this, but the reason they say it's God first, not man, you can't do anything, God chooses you, God elects you, etc., traces back to God is the only one who can actually create stuff, not like a concrete here in YouTube, not like in an idolatry sense, but in the sense of like making stuff exist, like molecules matter. Because God is the only one who can do that, God is in front of you making that existence. Therefore, when we say God chose you or God passes over you or God commands your steps, it's because you can't take a step without God making it. So the fact that God makes it is why we say God commands you.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient.
That's my whole point.
There's a Yiddish expression. I know you got Meyer in your audience, but it's alles ist Gott, all is God. So I don't think God is creating any new atoms or molecules anytime soon.
Oh, yeah, Adrian, I'm just trying to wrap this up with Jesse, but like my whole dog in this fight is one, it was just an epiphany. I'm like, that's why Calvinists say all this, have all the doctrines they do? That's eye-opening. If more people knew that, either if more Arminians understood that, again, assuming it's true, I'm being told by multiple Calvinists it is, assuming that's true, then Arminians should be more understanding, and also assuming that's true, Calvinists should do a way better job of explaining their position.
So the problem with Arminians, right, is that the reason that they object to what we say is because they know that. Like when we say God causally determines your choice of Christ, okay, they know that that's an eradication of libertarian free will, right? So the creation of their choice for or against Christ. They know that they, for whatever number of reasons, but they fall on the side of saying, no, like in effect, I am the creator of those decisions, right? Because if I am not the creator of those decisions, as the caricature goes, right, then I am merely a robot, and any degree, any amount of sense for self-worth that I have is just eviscerated. Right? So I am not a person. I am lesser than a person, if that is true. So they do understand that.
Well,
and most people, even in the middle, have some sense of that being the discussion.
Well, I don't think they understand that the way, apparently, and I'm just going to have to keep saying this, because until I guess I talk to every Calvinist on the planet and get a poll of you guys. So it doesn't sound like they're properly understanding it, because that seems to be what Calvinists would say is a straw man, that you're a robot, you're an automaton, because again, it sounds like the proper way to understand the Calvinist position is it sounds like I'm being told the proper way they should understand this is you're not a robot. You don't have this libertarian free will, but you totally have free will in other senses. It's just God knows what you're going to do, and you can freely choose whatever you want, but you're actually technically not doing that. God is doing that, because whatever you're going to choose, God knew you were going to choose that, and He had to create that thing, that the molecules, the existence, for you to actually be able to choose it. So it's your choice. It's your free will is choosing it, but God technically knew you were going to do it, and He got there first to create it. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So that would mean you're not an automaton. You're just using a lot of words to explain it.
You're using certain kind of precept, like you're saying creating like physical reality, like He got there first to create something so that you could do it, like that's not relevant to the discussion at all. You want to throw that out and it's not a matter of just God creating like think of it in like dominoes, you stacking dominoes. God's not just creating the dominoes, which then you choose to stack. Right, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Him creating the dominoes either, or how He stacks the dominoes, or how He stacks the dominoes. It comes down to like it's more exclusively an issue of cause and effect, right? In one's will. So when you say like creates physical reality, that's strange because that really has nothing to do with the discussion.
Well, there's something else I'd like to add on top of it. Like that's like building. I mean, I have like two building blocks. And again, it's me trying to understand you guys. So building block one is you can't do anything that doesn't exist, right? So that's why I say that it's like absolute base level. So dominoes, you can't play any dominoes. God wouldn't know whether or not you win or lose dominoes if there are no dominoes. So right, the dominoes have to be created and created. So the ability to act out anything has to be created by God in some sense. So God,
I agree.
well, let me get through this. You answer like 3 minutes for every 30 seconds I get. I know it can be wordy too, but I want to get through this because I really want your answer on what I'm about to say. So first, God creates the dominoes. Step 2, is this not where you would say like compatibilism comes in? Because it's like God says play this domino. You play this domino. You're being controlled by God. God says play this domino. Your steps are being ordered and committed by God. However, hypothetically speaking, if they weren't, if God wasn't commanding you to play these dominoes in this order, and God's like, you know what, you have my job for a day, honestly, do anything you want, you would play those dominoes exactly the same way God made you play when He was in control. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that's sufficient, right? Like, it's sufficient insofar as the question is framed and the analogy is presented. That is true, right? But that kind of gets to the point of, like, it's a question of exactly between the compatibilist and the compatibilist divide is what determines those facts that people suppose that God knows down the corridor of time, right? Like it's a question of, let's say God is hypothetically controlling everything that I do. Well, what is the standard of control? What's that definition? What are the criteria to determine control versus non-control? Right? And if you say God's controlling everything that I'm doing, but everything that I'm doing rationally, I'm doing in a colloquial sense, logically, I'm doing so in a position, right? I would defend my actions, even if God's controlling me to do what I'm doing. I would defend my actions before God if He then even brought me into before judgment with Him being the final cause of everything that I did. Right? Then what would non-control look like? Right? Non-control
It is the king's pleasure, Mr.
is impossible.
to explain.
Because if God is a necessary feature of me doing things volitionally, me having moral accountability, me doing them, in me utilizing the rational, my rational faculties to engage in deliberation of the choices that I want to engage in, and then what choices I ultimately make, right? Then just non-control is just like a trivial non-issue, right? Just like you have to have God as the final cause in order to make sense out of everything that you engage in the world. Otherwise, it just boils down to either an infinite regression, like a series of cause and effect and decision making that's just infinitely regressive, or it just like bottoms out at like spontaneous creation, right? The first reason in a series of reasons that I make any individual decision is just arbitrarily and randomly created, which is effectively the Molinist position. That final fact that God just foreknows just exists as a positive factor of my choice in Christ, as opposed to me not choosing. So I mean that's a good analogy. You know, I mean you're correct. It's just you gotta like remain focused on like the elements at play in the discussion, and then you really want to utilize as well like what it would, you know, stand in the shoes of the other side and then bear out the logical implications. What would it look like if in fact it were you know, that God were in control? What does it mean?
Effectively, effectively, I've been in the shoes of the other side for, I don't know, my whole life. And like I say, my position hasn't changed. So either I've been in the, I'm not in the camp. No one's switching camps. But either I've been in the wrong, people have placed me wrongfully in the wrong camp on the other side, or the right people haven't tried to claim me, I guess, as Chris is waging a campaign now. But the point is, since I would put myself on the other side, if the other side truly believed the way we're talking about, I would have disagreed with that. It's just no one ever asked me. Somehow in 15 years, I've been eluded for that question. So I would say things. I would say things the way I've been saying them. The way I say things now is the same view I've held. The only thing I'm doing now is thinking, wow, Calvinists have understood it. This is what they've been thinking the whole time. And so far, I'm told the answer is 99% yes. So
yes, basically, right? Yes, with the asterisks of basically, because the reason that I'm not surprised you ever came across this in all this time is because these issues are extraordinarily complex. They actually are, right? These our discussions that we have on these issues, almost no in-person discussion can do justice to these kinds of topics. Like in order to understand these kinds of topics and how and appreciate the level of complexity, you almost have to find the best works of literature on either side of the aisle, and you almost have to read them, and because their whole books are dedicated to just this issue. You know, so I'm not surprised. But I mean, I can ask you some questions that,
time for this. I have to run. I want to give Adrian the last word because I'm going to agree it's probably his final point. But go ahead quickly, Jesse. I mean, we may have time for all the questions today, but
okay. Well, let's say give me one ultimate reason why you chose to believe in Christ.
I'm so bad at questions. Like, give me one ultimate reason why I chose to.
Just one reason, not a confluence of reasons, right? Just one.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think I'm trying to divide the technical reason versus actually my reason, and I've been in these discussions so long it's hard. I mean, I would want to say I answered the call of God that was on my life or something, or I believe the Bible. I believe the Bible because I believe the Bible. That's why. I believe it is true. So. Yep,
and then you'd ask why. You know, obviously, the Socratic method. You ask why that is the case. Why were you receptive to believing in the Bible,
Yeah, and
answering
it
the
would.
call where others were not, And the point is that
Well, yeah, and then it would go like, no one can come to the Father unless the Spirit draws them. Okay, check. Okay, who did that? You or God?
No. I'm not doing that. I'm just asking why, right? Because the whys will regress to some point.
Right. Well, that's what I was doing. So I was trying to regress it a little bit to, God called me. No one comes to the Father except the Spirit. Well, then why did God do that? That was God's choice. But then you keep going all the way back to, the building blocks that you don't necessarily like. But you keep going all the way back to, okay, so.
No, I'm going to
regress this.
Yeah, I'm going to the building blocks intentionally.
Right. So after we've regressed all the way back, why were you able to choose God in the first place? And then I would say,
I don't want to talk about ability, right? That's why I was leading those questions. It's not an issue.
Is all this going to who chose me or God? Is all this going to was God's choice or my choice? Is that like?
No, it's not. No, it's a question of I want to know what you like. So, okay, so let's say you why? Okay, let's say the ultimate reason you'd say. You were born into a Christian household, and I ask why was that receptive? Why were you receptive to a Christian household, right? And two answers that you can give me is either just because you were, right, or God determined that you were. Okay, effectively, those are pretty mutually exclusive. So, of those, let's say you were receptive to the call of God because you wanted to be, and I ask why did you want to be, and you're either going to say God determined that to be the case, or God did not determine that to be the case, and then simply foreknew it to be true. Which of those options would you pick?
Depending how it's explained, I could pick either option. That's my problem.
No, because they're so. You could give additional explanations, but no additional explanation or qualification on top of either of those options. They cannot do injustice to that basic foundational distinguishing feature, which is that God either determined the fact or did not determine the fact, right? And there are implications that will illuminate after you answer kind of why that's significant, but the point is that it's going to boil down to either God did determine it to be the case, apart from any external factors to himself, or he determined it to be the case in virtue of factors external to himself.
Right, so I'll let you answer that with my clarifying question. So then whenever you say God determined, I would say, well, I'm thinking, yeah, I'd like to say because God determined it. But are you saying am I saying God determined it? I'd be born to a Christian household because God determined it in the sense that he's like, yes, I want you, Nate. I'm going to plant you right here in this Christian. Well, can I just get through? It derails me if I can't get through, but it's one or two. So if it's not this one, it may be the next one. So because God's like, I want you to be born in this Christian household, make it so, boom. Or are we saying God determines in the sense that God created everything and sustains everything, so I couldn't be born into that Christian household if that Christian household didn't exist all the way from times past? So are we saying God determines it in the sense that he sustains and upholds everything, or because he does that and then is also like, in addition to that, boom, I want you here?
Well, no, neither. The question is concerning, okay, you have to have the physical reality of the Christian household with which you can be born into, of course, right? Of course that has to happen. He also has to then determine, right, to just actually place you within that household, which I think was the first option you gave. But furthermore, my question pertains to, okay, let's say all of that happened. Okay, why were you receptive to the things? And then I ask you, why were you receptive to a Christian household? You just say, just because I was. Okay, well, there are only two ultimate explanations to your receptivity of the things of God. Right? That's the question. The question is why, volitionally, were you receptive to the things of God? He placed you among the things
to
of
me,
God.
Jesse,
And then you had a
the
positive
PTR
reaction
says
to
everything I
them.
need to know
Why
about
did you have a positive reaction to them? And those are the only two options for why you had a positive reaction to the things he placed you in the midst of is either he determined the fact of your positive receptivity to the things of God, as opposed to him determining your negative receptivity, meaning you would be repulsed by them. Okay? Or he only foreknew as a necessary fact that you would be positively receptive to them and then determined to place you among them. Right? So he either determined the fact or he merely foreknew the fact but did not determine it. Right? That's the question. It's concerning volition and his relation to the fact of your positive receptivity. You understand?
This is ridiculous.
I do have to end. So
This is ridiculous.
We're going to go right to you, Adrian, and then I'll make a final thought. But so yes, I do understand that is a lot to digest, and we'll have to pick this up some other time. But Jesse, would you give me an award for participating in this conversation much farther than I ever would have at any other point in my life?
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of you. I'm very appreciative of your willingness to participate.
Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why, Jesse thinks he's a subject matter expert. I mean, he uses a lot of technical terms. I'll just quote Luke when he writes in 17:21, the kingdom of God is within you. And John, who wrote, whoever believes has eternal life. John also wrote, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So my point is, Jesse, you use so many technical terms and it's just words. It's a pretty simple message. So I just don't understand, why you spend your time pontificating in such a way, which basically distracts people from the truth of God.
Well, I wanted to say don't direct it towards Jesse because I got to get out of here. I would just follow up. Yeah, Jesse, since he did say, can you say something in 30 seconds? But
I can.
Okay, go ahead. Then I'll say the final thought and get out of here.
Okay.
I didn't mean for it to be like a back and forth again.
I can have a straightforward address to the gospel, absolutely. The issue is that I've also read enough that while I'm not a subject matter expert on these issues, I do adequately comprehend them such that I can actually engage in those conversations, because every single one of the verses that he quoted to me, right, I can engage those verses and then ask, okay, what are the logical mechanisms that operate beneath those?
Okay.
I can both exegetically engage them.
Exegetically, here we go again.
Hang on, okay, we're done.
Exegetically, here we go again.
To all people, right, Paul? Someone can exegetically explain that next time. But, Paul, when he's in Rome, be all things to all people. Not meaning partake in sinful ways, but, meet them where they are. Know your audience would be another way of saying that, right? So if you're talking to someone that's like, I like to kill people. What do? Oh, my. You'll never hear ontology or economic trinity come from my mouth unless from now. I like to sin. I like to beat people up. I like to do awful things. Is there a God? Yes, bro. Yes, there's a God. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Repent, believe, receive eternal life. Please be born again very quickly. That's a person you're not going to worry about big philosophical debates with. Someone's like, hey, I've been this kind of Christian for a long time. I don't know. I'm considering this. Maybe this other philosophy is good. And they're just like a highly intellectual person. That may be where you want to meet that person. Be like, well, have you considered this? You don't need to leave Christianity yet because you think this philosophical point over here is a better mechanism for how the life works and how the universe works, which is going to lead you to some cosmic cause other than God. Have you considered this? Christians are not without their theological, philosophical teachings too. Maybe you're just been in a church with lights and smoke machines, and they're just like, yeah, God is good, and you're finding it lacking. So maybe now is the time we're going to break out some super specific, structured, logical teachings or discipleship. So the point is, Ecclesiastes, right? It's right again. There's a time for everything. There's a season for everything. So know your audience. And at the most basic point, I've been watching the room as we've been talking, people are just leaving, which usually I would check out, except I was the one involved. So, but yeah, certain things get certain people. I made enemies on here, Jesse, I hope you don't become one, but I made enemies from shutting down philosophical debates in the past, and they don't talk to me anymore. They're like, you need to read a book, Nate. I'm like, look, man, I get it. Look, you're that type of person.
Danny Smith.
Hey, it's Big Danny Smith. Hello.
Jesus, you and your profiles.
It's Big Danny Smith.
Not that you're allergic to suit and tie to church, but you know what I mean. They may not be receptive of like a motorcycle criminal felon preaching that Jesus loves them, but all the bikers that he preached to who are now saved, they were receptive to that. So it's like, everyone has their niche. We can't all be hands of the body of Christ. We can't all be feet. Different people are different things. Eyes, ears, hands, feet, nose, toes, whatever. So that's the point. So get in where you fit in. And yeah, Adrian, I would say I agree at that point. That the first thing to do is make it clear the basic gospel if you can. I mean, most people, no matter how much they want to get a debate, they'll be like, fine, make your point. What's the ultimate point? What's your goal going into this? It's like, Jesus is God. He's the way, the truth, and life. Repent, believe, pray directly to him. He will guide your steps. He will show you the way. Great. Now that that's done, my Great Commission is fulfilled. Let's get into whatever nonsense this guy wants to talk about. That's just kind of my way. Maybe Jesse has a different approach, and that's fine too. So be led by God.
I'm not poo-pooing. I mean, Jesse is a grown man. I mean, he's entitled to say what he wants, thinks what he wants. I'm just saying that in the chat, even somebody said these theological terms are just boring and not useful or practical for shorthand conversation at this early in the morning.
Well, for shorthand conversation this early in the morning, I can understand that. But I mean, there's a difference, right? There's like the Bereans. So step one is get saved. It doesn't matter what kind of intellectual knowledge you have. Without Jesus, you're as damned as everyone else. You're as damned as someone who's dumb as a bag of rocks. So the point is, step one is repent and believe the gospel. Everyone should do that. And then once they do that, they shouldn't stop there. They're like, okay, I now recognize God is real. Romans 1 is true. I've known all along. I've realized that. And I've repented. I believe Jesus has saved me. I've chose God. I've chose God. I've chose this. That may be where someone then wants to say, again, if you're of that ilk, like Jesse would be like, well, now that you're saved, brother in Christ, hallelujah, let's come over here and, let's do this thing called discipleship, because, Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep his commands. Do you know the commands of Jesus? No, I thought I just had to believe in him. Okay, that's good. Go through the Bible. Here's the commands of Jesus. Have you been baptized? Jesus says you should be baptized. And then go down this road of discipleship. And then somewhere along there, you're like Paul encourages people. He says, you've been on the milk of the word forever. He's like, it's time to chomp some steak. It's time to get on the meat of the word. So after you've got the baptism, your salvation, you're born again, you've got the commands of Jesus, you're following him, you understand like Acts, Romans, you've read the Bible. It's like, good, you're on a firm foundation. Now with that firm foundation, be like the Bereans and, go through all the teachings, go deeper in doctrines. And this is inevitably where, depending who gets their hooks in them first, he'll end up a tongue-talking chandelier swinger, or he'll end up...
I get it, but you don't think you can lose the original message by going deeper and deeper and deeper and creating new context and new abstracts based on abstracts? It just never ends.
Adrian, I want to offer you to talk to me after Nate closes the room.
I mean, if you guys want to stay and talk, I can let you run it, Jesse. If you guys want to stay and talk.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
I'm down for 10 minutes.
Okay, well, here, Jesse, let me make you mod. If you have to go and there's not like someone we know, like, and trust to be a mod, just in the room. But, okay, so my final thing would say, Adrian, I'll be charitable to the philosophical cause for a minute. It can be so confusing that, again, if they're on a firm foundation, if they're a solid Christian, it shouldn't be a stumbling block. But it could. And then it could bewilder someone and they think, why is there so much to this Christian stuff? I've got this Calvin thing, I've got Arminians, I've got libertarian free will. Like, I just thought I had to simply repent and believe the gospel. This is crazy. Like, is there even a God? Am I even real? Is Christianity right? Like, Christians are fighting like crazy. So it can have that effect, but in reality, it shouldn't. That's like someone who said, that they blame a church, and they're like, that's why I'm not a Christian anymore, because we talked about the woman they brought up and made her confess she was pregnant in front of the congregation. Doesn't seem biblical the way they did that. So if the person leaves a church and tries to leave God because of something like that, it does happen, but it shouldn't happen. And that shouldn't be on the head of the Christians or on the head of Jesse or someone else trying to explain deep theological concepts. That would be solely on the person. Because that's just them. If they're on a firm foundation, they should be able to hear all kinds of crazy stuff. Not saying wrong teaching, right? They should be able to hear heresy and hear arguments from Christians and be like, okay, because Paul says, hold on to what's good and let whatever's bad go. So you should be able to hold on what's good. So if they all say, hallelujah, praise Jesus, hold on to that. Be like, okay, great, they're Christians. But then if one of them is like off in heresy over here and teaching, and they're trying to be corrected by a Christian brother, they shouldn't be bewildered to the point where they're like, wow, how do I know which one is right? Maybe God doesn't exist. They should at least be like, okay, they have issues. They clearly need to work out their salvation with fear and trembling. I hope that guy gets through to him. But I know that has nothing to do with God. That's through their own motives. That's through ill intent. That's through other desires. I know I'm on a firm foundation of Jesus that won't be shaken. That's what should happen. So I'll just leave with that. But yeah, Jesse, so have fun. Let me know what happens, and see you guys later. Take care.
Take care, Nate.
See ya, dude. So what's the thing you want to like address?
Just give me the list. Give me 3 technical theological terms.
I mean, is this going to be a productive conversation, or is it just like epistemology? Yeah. Right. What is it? Epistemology. I don't know. Let's say. Oh, what is it here? I have it. Caught me by surprise. So I don't really have them off the top of my head. Where is it? Marcus Inclusio, and just cursive literature. There's 3.
Okay, so according to Google, the dictionary, epistemology is the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. In quotations, he grappled with metaphysics and epistemology in his writings and sermon. It's a branch of knowledge. I thought epistemology had to deal with the epistles or the gospel, but apparently that is not what epistemology is. So
yeah, that would be referred to as epistolary literature, right? The epistles, epistolary.
Okay, so ontology is the philosophical study of existence, being, reality, becoming, including the basic categories of being and their relationships.
Harper, yes.
Study of it,
Harper.
at its simplest, it says it's the study of existence, or the study of how we determine if things exist or not, as well as the classification of existence. So I don't know. I guess my criticism is of just like listening to, when people just use theological terms, to me, it just gets really kind of obnoxious because it's just, it's just too general, I guess. I don't know. I want it fast. I want my dopamine fast is what I'm saying.
I mean, the more you grow, the more you realize you can't get your dopamine fast. Like, it shouldn't be an issue of dopamine at all, right? I mean, the reason that scholars are scholars and they have big names in the field is because they've spent years and years and years behind the scenes doing the tedious work of studying and then growing their ability to actually engage the field on whatever various subject matters that they are doing so. So, for example, everything we're talking about, and really, it just kind of came up. Harper, stop! Everything that we were talking about is a perfectly valid, these conversations dominate literature, and they dominate literature. Why? Because smart people in the field that have spent their time responsibly in studying these issues understand that the issues merit their attention, right? It's not like you're fighting over was Luke 16 actually a parable and therefore does not genuinely operate as an example of the intermediate state. That is debated over, but that's far more trivial than something like the reconciliation between divine sovereignty and human responsibility. And yet, there's a reason that things,
two terms that we've used is epistemology and ontology. From those perspectives or that branch of philosophy, how do you know that Jesus Christ is the Son of God?
Well, through epistemology, for example, you can talk about the two the two more prominent fields or the epistemological theories is like one of them is foundationalism, and then another.
Trick question. Gotcha, man.
I'm gonna say it's thought of in kind of like a.
There we go. Fucking. Oh my god.
Hold on.
Is that your son?
Coherentism, right? And so most Christians would largely appeal to foundationalism as a theory of epistemology because knowledge
Coherentism.
cannot be circular in that sense, right? That individual facts, or as far as I understand it, because I haven't like deeply researched this, but Danny wants to come up. I think. Well, I tried to invite him up.
Try to bring Caleb up. He's an ordained rabbi. He has some God wisdom and knowledge.
I don't even see Caleb. Caleb?
If he wants to come up, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He can raise his hand. It's like an issue over foundationalism versus coherentism, right? Now, Scripture represents foundationalism, or I would say largely, because all knowledge is predicated on God, right? That's 1 Samuel 2:3. And that seems to make sense because the alternative option of coherentism, there's a lot of discussion. I was just reading out of Kevin Banhuser over interpretive theory, literary theory, theory for meaning in the text, and I can't remember the authors he was interacting with and citing because I did it on a whim. I didn't read through the whole book. It would seem that like more secular epistemologists will have trouble grounding meaning in just reality.
Secular epistemologists?
Like abstract.
Epistemology is the branch of philosophy that examines nature, origins, and the limits of our knowledge.
Propositions just exist. And I can't remember what they are called. They're like, I don't know. What is it? They're like realists, like moral realists, right?
This
They
guy
say,
uses
like,
more.
moral propositions.
You like all you do is use technical jargons.
Because this is not where I'm studying right now. But it would seem to make sense that moral facts or propositional truths, they can only exist if they depend upon some kind of ultimate mind, because abstractions are inherently dependent upon minds. So coherentism as a rebuttal against like Christian foundationalism, I don't think is coherent. But that's just like a really cursory, like just me recalling what interaction I've had with the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So wait, let me ask you maybe a pragmatic question. How do you utilize wisdom of God for your everyday affairs, or how do you use the wisdom of God to bring peace into your home for you and your family?
Yeah, so I don't think so the way the question sounds, right? It sounds like wisdom is almost as if it is a tool with which one can yield to produce good outcomes. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, right?
Really?
I think the more wise that you become, it is you who are wise, right? It's not necessarily a tool. So it's not necessarily something that you can utilize in and out of given situations. It's just going to be like a primitive property of your personality. You're just going to be wise or you're not going to be wise. It's like the intimate degree of sanctification, right? When you choose to stop sinning in a various area, you choose to stop sinning, not because you consciously are so intending to do so, right? But just because out of sheer fact of habit and the Spirit's indwelling, do you then just stop? And it's less a conscious affair than might be typically described in like theory, right? So I don't really utilize wisdom per se. I talk all the time.
Yeah, I can tell.
Right? Well, no. I talk all the time between me and my wife about what we think about how conversations went and what we think about what's going on in the news and what we think about certain theological theories, the exegesis of various passages, the significance of these passages to various doctrines that we affirm or deny. Like, we talk about pretty deep stuff all the time, and that is a practice of wisdom, right? Because there's far less pure in our marriage than otherwise could be.
Okay, let me ask you this. You know, Caleb gave a thumbs down to your answer there. My point is that if you look at the word wisdom, it's the domination of the wise, meaning that life isn't about dominating, but I'm just saying that wisdom is a useful tool. And when you discuss wisdom, I mean, the real wisdom is going within, knowing that you are the truth. The more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. Stop thinking, end your problems. I'm just saying that, wisdom is a category of study. And I've got books on axioms and aphorisms. And if you read those things and you integrate it into your knowledge, I just find that the irascibility begins to diminish. You stop utilizing terms like exogenesis or epistemology or ontology. You just say what you want to say. You don't use technical jargons in every other word. It's just my opinion.
Bro, I didn't hear what you said. The what ability? You said something, the exerbility? What did you say?
Anyways, let me ask you one more question.
No, I don't think you know what you said. As I'm asking you for the sake of 30, I don't know.
I'm not sure. My point is, you say that wisdom isn't a useful tool, that you don't actually utilize it.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Oh, you didn't say that. Okay.
No, I said wisdom is not a tool per se. It's not something that you are formally using, right? As you would, right? Like a wrench, right? Or say principles of hermeneutics, right? It's not a tool in that
hermeneutics.
It's a property of.
Is that like hermeticism? What is hermeneutics? Let me look up that.
So, serious question though. How much do you read?
I read every day.
Are you sure? Because, hermeneutics is a very basic term.
Let me look it up. Tell me your definition of hermeneutics.
Why do you have to look it up?
Because I don't know what hermeneutics is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, your criticisms, they're fairly vain and vacuous criticisms.
Okay, this is what Google says hermeneutics is. It is the study of interpretation, including the methods and principles used to interpret text, art, and other artifacts. It can also refer to the art of understanding and communication. So that's like hermeticism, right? Above and below, below and above?
No, I don't think so. I think that's like etymological anachronism.
Etymological anachronism. Okay.
You're taking one word and you're looking. It's like a root fallacy.
Root fallacy. Okay. So it says hermeneutics in translation. Translational hermeneutics is the study of how to interpret text for translation. Translational hermeneutics is closely related to philosophical hermeneutics. Anyways, this is really a fascinating technical conversation, which, as you said, I don't read. So maybe I'm not qualified or capable of having such a complicated conversation. I apologize for even attempting.
I'm a little irritated that you're criticizing me on things that you're not even aware of. You have to Google. I'm not using complex terms. We're not diving into deep, complex theory or anything.
Got it. So we haven't even begun getting complicated or technical. Understood.
Wisdom, right? When I was talking about wisdom, I'm talking about wisdom in terms of it's not a proper tool, right? That maintains subject-object distinction as if it's just something you can pick up and utilize at one given point in time or another, right?
Is the Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, does it have wisdom in there?
It does, and that has nothing to do with what I just said.
Okay. So wait, I have one final question. Jesse, I have one final question for you. Can you please teach me about meditation?
No, because I don't believe in meditation.
You don't believe in meditating?
No, I think it's pagan.
Really? Fascinating. What makes meditation paganism?
I think prayer is valid. I think that meditation is absolutely pagan.
Okay, so what is prayer? Can you demonstrate prayer to me, please?
Yeah, prayer is the interaction, speaking to, in relationship with another agent, right? Obviously, the divine agent. Meditation doesn't have anything to do with the interaction with the divine agent.
Got it. And I want to just point out that Selena is a big fan of yours. She wrote, clearly, I'm an unbeliever, and I'm mad that Jesse is so smart and that I'm complaining that you have an extended vocabulary.
Well, yeah, sure. I appreciate it. Whatever, man. Look, the point is, if you want to have a serious conversation, I'm more than happy to have a serious conversation about a given subject. Like, do you want to talk about something?
Yeah,
Or are you just
tell me.
showboating?
No, I mean, I'm down to talk to you about whatever you'd like to discuss, or we could discuss Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior,
Well,
this
we
King, the
were
Savior of
talking about
mankind.
Compatibilism with Nate.
Compatibilism?
Yeah, so if you leave it up to me,
I'm going to start putting a list down of all this technical jargon because I've never heard of compatibilism.
All right. Okay, we're good. Dude, look, bring up a subject and then teach me about the subject, right? Or we're just done.
Okay, I would like to discuss mantras.
Okay.
Do you know what a mantra? Do you know what a mantra? Do you know what a mantra is?
Like in the literary fashion, like it's just the saying or statement that characterizes a movement.
No, a mantra is a repetition, repeating a word over and over again in order to essentially become nonverbal or stop utilizing words or essentially obstruct the automated thinking process, which I think you are addicted to thoughts and words, in my opinion.
Okay, so you're still doing meta?
If you want to call it meta, that sounds good to me.
All right, dude. I'm not doing meta. You can talk about a subject.
I told you I wanted to talk about mantras. I mean, if you're going to tell me I can talk about a subject and then say I don't want to talk about meta, I mean, that's up to you.
No, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
I see. Got it. We hit the nail on the head. All right. Well, then Mazel Tov. Yeah.
If anybody wants to come up, you can. Hey, Chris. Long time no see.
Angry. Anger. Couldn't take the convo.
How you been, Aaron?
Pretty good.
Couldn't
I
take
feel
the
like I've
convo.
talked to you in the past, but I don't recall when.
Yeah, I used to be on the server. I left. I've been on Discord for a while, so.
Yeah, I could never get into Discord myself.
I did have a particular question about Genesis, but you had brought up about compatibilism. Those are two topics I do like.
Yeah, that's just what me and Nate were talking about. He mentioned something
Jesse and words.
related to it earlier in the conversation, so I was like, okay, well, we started talking about that, and then it kind of ended with a conversation with whatever his name is, Adrian or whatever.
Jesse and
But yeah, I mean, wherever you want to go, I'm working on my computer, but I'm just hanging out as well. So
Okay. Well, there's an idea.
Jesse, you need to step it up and bring Adrian up. No?
Opinion you have about the creation story here. But there's an idea that in Genesis 1, when it speaks about making them male and female, that this would be outside the garden. In Genesis 2, I know traditionally is focused on the sixth day, considered to be traditionally that, Adam and Eve is just two people. But there's another take that it might be that Adam and Eve would be on the inside of the garden and that there were still people on the outside of the garden.
Thanks, Jesse, for the enlightening convo.
Whereas there's other people outside of that, Adam's lineage. So I don't know if
there is no garden in Genesis 1.
Correct. There's no garden in Genesis 1. There's a garden in Genesis 2. So there's an idea that in Genesis 1 it's speaking about two people, not of the garden. In Genesis 2 it's about two specific people inside the garden.
Why do you have to make that move? Why don't you just say they're two different stories from two different traditions sewn together by a master editor?
Well, because then you'd want to. Because the obvious reason is if you do that, then you decrease the unity of the biblical canon, right? So.
Well, but the biblical canon isn't. The biblical canon isn't unified.
No. I mean, obviously, you know what I'm saying when I say biblical canon, which is implying, right, a single divine author who has inspired certain texts and not others. So that canon, that biblical canon is defined by the unity of that single divine author, right?
I know we have
that's fine, but that's right. But Jesse, that's a presupposition that's not borne out by the actual text. The text is the text is not univocal.
Well, I didn't say it was univocal per se. Depends on what standard. It depends on what you mean, what standard of criteria you're going to define univocal, right? Because I also affirm diversity of the canon, obviously, just in virtue of the fact that there's multiple human authors. But that argument, right, that allows you
to use a lot of words.
No.
There's a lot of words.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
You use a lot of words.
Without making any presuppositions about the divinity or not of the text. Let's just take the text as it is. It's not univocal.
You use a lot of words. You use a lot of words.
Multiple different and contradictory theologies, different and contradictory details on the same narratives, on the same events. Right now, if people want to say that there's some kind of divine aspect to that, you're going to have to negotiate with the text pretty strongly and harmonize all kinds of stuff that are clearly not harmonious.
Yeah, now the question is, how is that not a presupposition, right? Because we need to get back to Aaron's discussion, because we don't want to take this into a totally different direction that he didn't intend it to go. But how do you make that anything more than a presupposition on its own?
Cloud.
I agree that it's
Cloud
a
has this so
presupposition, but
much
it's one
fun.
that's based in the data, not based on something outside
We
the data.
can all.
Yeah, but I have numerous scholars I can appeal to that disagree with them, right? Like,
I
that
would just
is
say
like-
that they're ignoring the data.
Clubhouse is so
And I
much
could just
fun
say,
if we could all
in
enjoy
reverse
the
direction.
experience.
right? In fact, I have several biblical theologies on my shelf right now that I can appeal to their sections, particularly in their introductions to
This guy
critical theory, engage with the unity of the text, broadly speaking, and argue precisely for that, utilizing justifications like both historical and
Jesse has
theological
become a
justification
dictionary.
to that being the case.
But it's not the case.
Okay, but do you have a justification off the top of your head that that is the case?
Well, as you said, multiple human authors with conflicting and differing theologies and histories. I mean, it's all over the Bible.
Okay, let's analyze what you said, right? So what you said had two elements, right? Multiple authors, and then they have conflicting, let's say, just testimonies or theologies or historicities. Okay? The first point is not a rebuttal.
The Winter
It's not
Soldier.
an argument. There being multiple authors. There's multiple authors. We still argue for the unity of biblical text under multiple authors. The second one, contradiction.
Wait.
What was that?
God as a way.
How can you argue for the
let me
unity?
finish real
No,
quick.
one thing at a time. One thing at a time. One thing at a time.
Yeah, sure. We're doing like one thing at a time because I was not
Don't
done.
move on to the second thing then.
I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just analyzing, right? Which you're saying that the.
No, I have a question about what you just said.
That's
I have
fine.
a
That's
question
fine. I'm
about
not going
what
to
you
take
just said.
forever, Caleb. You got to let me lead this. You can lead. Okay. Listen.
Jesse,
second point.
you're not my professor. You're not my TA.
I'm not being your professor.
Let
I
the
just wanna
green
finish my
bean lead.
sentence. I just want to finish my sentence.
But I have a question about your
That's
sentence.
fine. You can ask your question, but if you don't stop, dude, come on. Let me finish. Okay,
Let
the
the
second
green
point of the contradiction is
Caleb.
borne out in the actual work that's
Just
done on
don't
either resolving the contradictions
Demands.
or justifying that they are genuine contradictions. Okay, so that is not an argument in and of itself. Go ahead.
Caleb, his dopamine demands it.
The first thing you said was that the multiple authors does not contradict the unity of the text.
His dopamine demands it.
That's correct.
How is that the case?
Because you can have multiple authors, right, and that there still be a unifying core element within each of their works, right, that testifies by the absurdity of the contrary to there being a divine singular author. Right?
That was gibberish. That was gibberish. Say that in regular speak.
No. That's very standard in all biblical theologies, right? That question is the very standard first question that all biblical theologies engage. The thesis, right, that secular other scholars are arguing against is precisely that. They interact with it.
Right. So all we're left with, that's fine. So all we're left with is two presuppositions. That's all we have.
So far, because we're not engaging justifications right now, right?
I don't have to because the justifications only exist inside the world of the presupposition.
No, they don't. No, by
Of course they
definition,
do.
presuppositions
No,
are
by definition, that's not right. By definition,
define a presupposition.
like something like a first principle,
Okay, define
an
a
axiom, an axiom. It's an axiom
Why is it axiomatic as opposed to it not being axiomatic?
because it can't be demonstrated by any means. It's just stated and accepted.
Well, no, not necessarily accepted.
Is
but
this
it
an
is just
epistemology
stated, right?
class?
And so there is no ability to justify a presupposition
Great.
on its own grounds, right?
That's
Great
right. So you can't
observation.
justify. That's right. You can't justify your presupposition, and I can't justify mine.
Great observation.
No, you
Selena.
can't justify a presupposition on its own
Great
grounds, right? But what you can do is that you can show that certain presuppositions have greater explanatory power
I'm so confused now.
an analysis of the whole syllogism within which they operate.
You're using too many words,
So
Jesse. Can you
confused
prove the laws
now.
of logic using the laws of logic?
But you can.
No, you cannot.
No, I think you can.
No, I don't
Jesse
think you
thinks
can.
and
Okay, so there's
speaks.
just a disagreement.
Besides the point, let's go back to the nature
Like his
of presupposition,
PTR.
right? Presupposition is either granted
Jesse thinks and speaks like his PTR.
largely on its own merits, right?
Jesse
The
thinks and
reasons
speaks like
why
his
someone would
PTR.
grant, right, or reject an individual presupposition has to do with how that presupposition operates in relation to other external justifications and other external
There
presuppositions.
he is with the so many words,
All
man.
right,
Can
dude,
you
I'm done, dude. Look, you do this.
Can you speak more
cannot
clearly?
have. Look. If you cannot have a normal adult, when I first got on this app and I first initially talked to you, you were so much more enjoyable because the conversations actually operated as adult conversations. When
Well,
you
I'm trying to do
engage
that.
like that, no, you're not. And I'm done. I'm going back to
All I'm saying, Jesse, is that the words you're using.
He can't handle
I
himself.
think obfuscates what you're actually trying to say. I'm asking you to try to say it more simply.
Okay, that's fine. That's what it does. Then I guess that we have resolved the conversation. I'll just on that point, you know. Okay, I'm going back to Aaron. Because this conversation is
Exactly. He needs help.
Aaron, so I'll just say one thing to Aaron. Aaron, you do not have to harmonize Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. You can simply say they're two different authors, two different traditions, two entirely different points of the story. You don't have to harmonize them. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time, man. All right, Aaron. Do you want to go back to what you were talking about?
Jesse is a good boy.
Sure. Yeah, sorry, man.
Thanks, Jesse is a good
It's all
boy.
good. I don't think it's that interesting. It's not very popular.
Sorry, man.
Some challenges some long-standing
Sorry,
church
man.
doctrines, specifically original sin.
I love
Just see if you have
spiritual
an opinion,
pride
and if you don't, we can move to a different topic. That's fine.
and genius
You
people.
restate it for me, sorry. My mind is not.
I love spiritual pride and genius people.
The idea that
They
Genesis
know
1 would be humanity
everything.
in general, right?
They know
There's an idea
everything.
when you read
So
through Genesis 1, I
smart.
don't think people are saying that.
They know everything.
When the waters were filled with
So
creatures, this was
smart.
happening in a very specific place. It's
I love spiritual pride and genius
plants
people.
happening in birds
They know everything.
where
They're so smart.
generally accept this to be worldwide. And then on day 6, when male and female are created, right? I guess it's read as a single two people. I don't know.
Jesus.
Imagine
Imagine a book, but with arms, legs, and a head.
The challenge would be on day 6.
It's
if there's
Jesse.
Things being created is that only happening
Dr.
in the walls of the
Dictionary
garden or in the proximity of this
in
garden?
the Christian
the plants of the
theology.
field, like the beasts of the field, right? Is that only in the garden?
index.
How do you
That's
separate
Jesse.
those?
Dr. Dictionary in the Christian Theology Index.
Is, right, going to be like several layers deep.
I'm willing to bet.
Do you want a priest? You can
He
say
kicks.
just fine, right? That there's activity going on outside of the
To
garden
get
as well.
his
God's
total
creating
dopamine.
other animals and other humans outside of the garden.
I'm willing to
Just
bet
as
he
he is
kicks
within
me
the
to get
garden.
his
But
total
the issue
dopamine.
is that you don't have any.
Do it, Jesse.
You don't have any original like
Become
Jewish
who
texts
you
to
were
that
meant to
being the case,
be.
right? That Genesis 1 and 2 are the earliest texts. I mean, manuscript tradition for Genesis 1 and 2, as far as I'm aware,
To
goes
just
back
become who you were
like
meant to be.
early Middle Ages.
Strike
500
down
BC,
your
right?
father.
Like the Masoretic
And
tradition,
Get you.
as far as the manuscripts we have. And those are the data of those indicate that
Strike
they are
down
very
your
early.
father and get
The
your
textual
dopamine.
tradition's very earlier. So that would be back to like prior 1000.
You will be enlightened.
I'd say at the latest, right? So canonically speaking, you just don't have any other data to work with. That's all you have to go with. So you could have other things going on,
When Jesse shuts
but
up.
on what basis would you be able to justify that you have other things going on?
Yeah, so it would just be trying to read.
He kicked me. He kicked me. He kicked me. We got it. We got Jesse. We got Jesse, dog. We got Jesse.
I'm too early for movie quotes. I'm sorry about that. As it gets towards the afternoon, I love my fucking movie quotes thing.
The genius room.
I think the angel.
Right now, I'm just in the mood to drink coffee and yell at dickheads who don't know what the fuck they're talking.
They kicked me. They kicked me.
So the children are influenced more by the mom. Liberal. Oh,
And this is the problem. You need a father. Every man needs a what?
that's funny. I can't believe it. So that's what y'all, because I was like, damn, where did y'all become friends?
And I used to take up for Ann and Monica until I saw what they were really doing.
Hello, 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 hello.
Bye.
Don't talk, Naveen.
Don't talk, Naveen. Ann will live stream you on her TikTok channel.
Better than being on your YouTube.
Hello?
Yeah. Everyone stay on mute.
Everyone stay on mute and do what Commander Ann of the MAGA Democrat Walkaway Movement tells you to do. Ann is your leader and Dr. Jasmine is your psychiatrist. Hello? Everyone stay on mute. Don't give him any content. Don't flare his dopamine. Give him nothing.
Hello?
Hello? Did you hear it? Did you hear that, Ann?
Okay.
Dr. Jasmine.
No, I wasn't around. I'm sorry. I was paying for my drink.
What drink you get today?
Pineapple juice.
Jessica, please remove him.
Oh, remove them.
Yes, 3 for 3.
Remove them.
3 for 3. We did it. We'll see if we get 4 for 4.
Nigga who is related to, but don't take it personal. So
This guy can talk all day. This guy talks 40 hours a week.
they'll come and ravage our
You
city,
ever shut up?
take our wives, take our daughters, take our fucking cattle, some of our fucking fruits and vegetables. But sometimes they'll leave the women. They only give them back.
You ever shut up?
And these niggas is telling you like, yo, after the
Fuck these people.
חשבתי להורים שלי יש להם תותים. Oh yeah, that's where I heard from too. That's where it's funny.
Hello! I downloaded Ariota app, but I don't understand. Like, it ain't social audio dating. I mean, you still here right now? I want to talk to you on the Ariota app, Ariota. Hello? Hello?
Oh, fuck, where'd that room go? Remove from room? Remove from room? Who rules the world? Felons rule the world.
Yeah, I'm good, Jay. Thank you for asking. I was thinking to myself, the case does provide an opportunity.
Felons ruin the world.
Let's assume, parenthetically, that it is not reversed on appeal. That it provides a great opportunity for other political actors to utilize similar tactics in the /legal political arena.
Felons ruin the world.
Activists,
There's a lot of felons on this stage.
county and state level, might be able to take advantage of this structure of conviction for
There's a lot of felons on this stage.
likewise.
There's a lot of felons on this stage.
I'm thinking right now, say
Trump's getting to be like Putin. Takes a felon to know a felon.
the governor being accused of incompetence and some other kinds of things.
5 for 5. 5 for 5. We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. We're doing it. My bad.
Cause I nasty as our clubhouse and Mia called your man T.I. last night. You messy bitch.
Okay, we're gonna finish this up with chillism.
I think you should invite your Jewish friends in here too, so we can talk about Jews. So anyway, as I was saying,
Jewish?
but whenever, no, I was actually just.
That wasn't fucking love.
No, it wasn't. Shut the fuck up, you dumb nigger. Anyway, so in the past, yeah, you niggas are fucking annoying. So in the past, when I have gotten Muslim people in here, rather than have actual religious debates, it's all
Dumb, no IQ.
Oh my God, you a pedophile. Like, don't nobody want to come in here for that shit? Yeah, I'm not doing it. So I'm gonna read it out the Talmud, and then y'all tell me what this means, right? It's in the Mishnah. I don't know what the fuck that is. Anyway, no problem. Shut up, mute up so I can read it. Calm down. You know why? Like, hello? Okay. With regard to a female convert or a captive woman or a maidservant who were ransomed with regard to the captive, or who converted with regard to the convert, or who was freed with regard to the maidservant when she was less than 3 years old and 1 day, for all of these, their marriage contract is 200 deniers, as their presumptive status is that of a virgin. Even if they were subject to intercourse when they were younger than that age, the hymen remains restored, and they are subject to a claim concerning their virginity. What does that mean? Their hymen is restored before the
She
age
has
of
a
3?
baby. We're reading Talmud on Comhouse.
This is why the
Pathetic.
first thing I told you about that verse before you even read it, I said, yo, niggas came in there,
Pathetic.
ravaged the city, took the
Kentucky.
So this is the
It's
scenario I'm thinking
trash.
of. So we got to take it out of this time in Senate and go back to that fucked up place. One single ass, a donkey, was worth 5 denarii. 5 denarii. So it's 1 denarii. For one of these
Understand?
bitches they talking about here. And they telling you if you buy one,
This
you
has
buy a
gotta-
girl, you buy one of these niggas for whatever reason, you want a freedom. Because remember, the Bible
This
tells you
has
if you see a
gotta-
Jew and that's a slave, you're supposed to buy their freedom. That's a law. So he's telling you the cost of one of these niggas and what you're supposed to do. And he's telling you that this little girl
Hello?
does not lack any value if she was raped by one of them oppressors. That's the basic understanding of it. Now, if you read it without that understanding, that shit is crazy. That's why Gentiles are not supposed to read
So
it.
from what I understood, it is saying
No.
that like intercourse with a child less than 3 years old wouldn't really be counted as intercourse, as the hymen is restored after 3 years old.
And that's their stupid scientific reasoning. They think they freaking science right now. They think that's it's like Aristotle and niggas. Some of the niggas thought the world was flat, but they spoke science according to what they know. These dumb niggas is thinking that's true. They believe that. They believe it wholeheartedly. You know that's stupid. I know it's
Good
stupid.
day, you dumb
You can't
motherfuckers.
call them that. They ain't know no better.
Good day, you dumb mother clown.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some Jews that believe in the Talmud and others who don't.
Who?
Like practicing Jews. There are
Talmud.
practicing Jews who believe in it and others who don't.
Yes, my brother.
So do the ones that believe in it believe that
Talmud.
sexual intercourse with anyone younger than 3 years is not counted?
Make up. May you all read a book today.
The whole Old Testament.
May you all read a book today. Goodbye. Goodbye, clown people.
But that's why I brought it up, so they could question it and be like, damn, can we really use this as evidence?
Dox me, I don't
Prophet
care.
said, yo, this shit was twisted by lies. That gives Jesus more
Dox me, I
credibility
don't
when they
care.
say, oh,
Bring it.
we gotta obey Moses
Bring
and
it.
Jesus. No, Jesus said he don't trust that shit. He quoted Jeremiah. But you can't tell that to the Hebrew Israelites because their identity is based on that. And once you
Hello,
start building your
clowns.
identity with religion, you start having nationalistic and narcissistic
Good.
beliefs.
Get me.
You can't, no disrespect, you can't tell Lion or Lady Yo. I didn't want to start the shit with that.
Farewell, clowns.
You can't.
Okay, this room is called Kick Me, Dox Me, Hate Me. This is Adrian. We have Danny here. Danny's a lifelong fan. Are you having?
Howdy, y'all.
Are you
It's Danny Smith. I know who I am.
Howdy, Danny.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here. Pleasure. Just having a great Friday morning. I wanted to just come up and say I thought you conducted yourself very well in the
In the Jesse room.
against Jesse.
Why do you think I did a great job?
Because he couldn't rebuttal, he had to put you down in the audience. He couldn't answer any of your questions. Had no response, right? So he decided to get his dopamine rush, and you predicted it before he did it. I thought that was funny because you said that. Right?
Weren't my comments hilarious? Like they were so fucking awesome and funny. I mean,
It mentally got to him.
yeah. Yep. What do you think you call that point, technically speaking, if you had a theological handbook, dictionary? What's that point when your mind snaps and you go, I'm kicking this person because I want that dopamine and I hate them? Oh.
I don't know. I did think it was psychologically very smart. It was very, I was actually impressed. I'm like, hey, you called it before you did it. You psychologically got to his head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you think I was polite to him, or did you think I was mean or rude or just right?
No, I thought you were just right. I thought it was like polite.
Mm-hmm.
And, but you could hear kind of a little, like from the text, you could hear like the undertone of like a little teasing, right? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's what got to him because it was like slightly condescending. And like, God, you get what I'm saying, like the backhanded.
Backhanded, condescending teasing of somebody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was very good. It got under his skin.
It did, didn't it? Yeah. That's what I really like, is knowing that like I can get under, these people's skin. Technically, he's a little bit like an atheist in a way. It's kind of the same attitude, for a supposed theist who believes in Jesus Christ. Like, he certainly acts like an atheist being confronted on what they're saying and claiming that they're low IQ. Just because you know technical terms, it doesn't add to the conversation. You're basically using undefined words constantly. And even that Caleb was like, dude, you use way too many words, just like constantly, chronically. It gets really annoying because, I don't know, less is more. And it's just not, I don't know. It is what it is. It's fun though. This app is a lot of fun. I mean, I assume that's why you keep coming back, right?
It is, yeah. It's a social experiment. It really is.
But how the hell do you have a new account and a new party hat every time? Like, how do you create a new account for free? What app are you getting your burner numbers from to recreate a new profile?
Hey, hang on.
All right, look at you just being messy.
And he was in Meerut, according to the college officials, according to the hostel where he was living, hostel by house of the landlady. Everything was against the left-wing propagandists. But you had radical leftists storming the courts, demanding that these people be killed. So, you can see what the whole propaganda was. I think it was 4.37 crore times her photos, her name, her story was shared all across the internet. 4.37 crore times.
Mm.
You see that with any other case, plural. Are there not rape cases in India?
Mm.
Why do you think this was overblown internationally? And they were targeting Hindus by saying it is Devistan. And that the Hindus did pay a price of in Kathua. They were forced to leave that area. So every time these people talk about Kathua, people should remind them that when a CBI inquiry was demanded by all Hindus of Jammu, they were crushed by Mehbooba Mufti. They were And this is not new in Jammu. We say Hindus kabhi awaaz nahi uthate. They tried it. And government, even the BJP did not listen to them. They fell to the narrative of the Islamists, what they wanted to peddle. It's sad.
Yeah, this kind of a thing just does something to me. It just totally stirs my stuff. Yeah, it makes me feel so. Yeah. Bichari, how much she should have suffered, huh?
No, how much did the accused suffer? Accused को अभी तक तो साबित नहीं हुआ वो कितने सफर के होंगे सोचो।
I feel sad for the girl because I feel that child was just a sacrificial goat for the politics of Islamists in Kashmir. You tell me, plural, you have a child. Oh, by the way, the two children of these so-called parents, they have a... Okay, you know what? When Madhukeshwar interviewed the alleged parents, they stated that, they don't have photos of girls, the parents and the brothers. Now, when the brothers were interviewed by Madhukeshwar, they showed one more photograph of the girl, just one more photograph, in which they are saying it's an 8-year-old girl. Imagine an 8-year-old girl. No matter how much of a rural India you come from, will you let an 8-year-old girl burn the charcoal on that bhatti, keep a tawa, not the small ones that we have in our homes, like the huge ones, and then make rotis and turn, usko ulata. That girl's only photo, which except the purple dress one which you have seen all across the internet, was this one particular photo, which the family did not send it to the interviewer because, of course, it falls against the propaganda, right? So I honestly feel this girl was a domestic help at their home, and that's why they did. I am 99% sure it was the parents. It's the parents who murdered her. Alleged parents. The poor one. You tell me there should be an evidence of rape. There was no evidence of rape. They said bite marks, that was false.
So to summarize it, okay, so just to make sure that we have what you say are the facts. First is the rape in itself had to be proven, and the local community insisted that the CBI comes on board and conducts an investigation, which was turned down. Secondly, when the test for rape is not breakage of hymen, and neither is it a two-finger test, I can't believe that we live in a country where they actually do the two-finger. Anyway, so both of them were performed, but neither of them by law are allowed, and partly also not just because they're stupid, but also because they're not efficient. And third is the relationship between the accused and the victim, unfortunately, seems to be a little bit more colorful than what it was made out to be, in the sense that they seem to have spent some time together. And fourthly, the outrage that the left has actually created out of it also included some parts of the Indian judiciary where the judges allowed these not so best practices to be used as a standard. And therefore, when you bring the four together, it casts enormous amount of shadow, plus the evidence, which is the dupatta or whatever of this young lady in question. When these sniffer dogs were brought in to trace the scene of crime, it had already been sullied by the police because they had already worn it around their neck. So the sniffer dog really did not lead them into the temple sanctum, and it instead just came and sat. So neither was the evidence conclusive, neither were the tests conclusive, neither was the judiciary being particularly fair. However, the matter was blown out of proportions considering the reach that it has had. But one thing is for sure, we are one daughter down.
I would like to say one thing. I don't think the topic needs to be on Katwa. I think I've said my piece. I think you can just make it into something else. But I'll give you one example. The way the judiciary is absolutely asshole in a way. If you remember the Delhi riots, I'll just take an example of the Delhi riots because I can't think of a better example. In Delhi riots, according to the left, it was an anti-Muslim pogrom, right? Now, in that, what are the reasons they give for an anti-Muslim pogrom? They say that majority Muslims died, hence it is anti-Muslim. The other thing was that the first person to be held accountable by the courts was a Hindu. Oh, I'm forgetting his entire name, but his surname was Yadav. I can remember that much. On that basis, they say it was an anti-Muslim pogrom. Though the courts differ on this, there is a local court verdict in Delhi which says it was anti-Hindu. But anyways, now in this case of this guy, this Yadav guy, what happened was it is ridiculous. I'll tell you. And I'll compare it with another case of the same riot. So in this case, the Yadav guy was standing in a colony where there was a house of a Muslim woman. Tejaswini, you can just change the title to Hinduphobia. But so what happened?
We go back to the original topic.
Yes. This guy was standing in an area where there was a communal violence, of course, happening. We know what the Delhi riot was about. There was a Muslim woman's home, and there was a Hindu mob, apparently a Hindu mob, chanting Jai Shri Ram and put the Muslim woman's home to fire. Now, in this case, nobody died because nobody was in the home. Now, the court, under section 169 of the IPC back then, now we have BNS, but back then IPC, under 169, if I'm correct, they said this is their exact statement. You are a Hindu. The mob is Hindu. So, if they are burning the house of a Muslim woman chanting Jai Shri Ram, even if you didn't pick up weapons to support them, still you standing them makes you a rioter, an arsoner. And he was sentenced to 5 years in jail. He's still living his jail sentence, by the way. So this is one thing. The person, when the police investigated, there were no weapons found from him. There was no evidence that he took part in burning of the Muslim woman's home. There was no items stolen from that area which was found in his home. No blood stains, no weapons, nothing. Just because the court assumed that because he's a Hindu, that he must have burnt the house of the Muslim woman. Hence, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, let's take another example, similar example, under the same section, by the way, of the case of Dilbar Negi. Now, Dilbar Negi was a Hindu who was, when people talk about the Delhi riots, people generally say Dilbar Negi was burnt alive and Ankit Sharma was killed. It sounds so simple now when you say killed, stabbed, maybe he must have been stabbed once. No, Ankit Sharma was stabbed 51 times to a point that his intestines came out of his body. With the case of Dilbar Negi, because here's the example.
Speak about Justice Loha.
Talking about Dilbar Negi, his hands and legs were chopped, and his body, the rest of his torso, which he was in pain, he was burnt alive. Now, in this case, the court said, using the same section, a different court interpreted the same section in a way that we don't have evidence whether these Muslim youths killed Dilbar Negi. They said killed Dilbar Negi or not. Henceforth, we will give them bail. You see, the same section of the law is interpreted differently by two different courts. In one section, just because a Hindu was standing there with no evidence, by the way, against him, no accusation against him, still he was booked. But in the case of a Muslim, the same section of the law, where a person is killed, basically, here nobody died, here a person was killed so brutally. And the court said, we don't have evidence against these poor Muslims. They just rioted because they were offended. So we don't have evidence against them. Henceforth, we can't arrest them. We'll give them bail. It happened to Dilbar Negi's criminals. So this is how the court functions. The court is like, I don't know, it's like a rotten apple at this point, the judiciary. Because Dr. Justice Lokur, he's retired now. He said Ankit Sharma died. Now, it is very evident from the FIR, from the charge sheet, that Ankit Sharma was stabbed 51 times. Justice Lokur in his judgment, in his remarks, says Ankit Sharma died. It sounds like an accident, when you say he died.
It's very cleverly, the word choice, the choices of word chosen by these justices, right? While giving a verdict or while typing out whatever they had discussed, that plays a lot of difference, right? And that's where it goes to the ultimate verdict where they give at the end of the statement, writing the whole summary of what they discussed. It's ridiculous. It's seriously ridiculous.
When people respect the judiciary, I would say criticize the judiciary. Criticize the judiciary when they make stupid statements like this: ki Ankit Sharma died, as if like some dog bit him and he died. They're talking like that.
Isha, this is very true. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. See, the judiciary system is totally corrupt, yeah. It's very difficult for them to, to bring a change in the judiciary system. Either they have to completely repeal the thing and then bring a new system. Otherwise, they'll have to take up a thing in which, all these judges who had given these wrong judgments, they have to be penalized. Or something of that kind of thing should also come out. See, because at the end of the day, who's going to oversee the work of these judges? Because they are the ultimate people, right? Giving the verdicts and listening in the court.
Rashmi, that is why I said criticize the judiciary, because they sit in judgment of everything we do.
Exactly.
We are right, we are wrong. You're not communal, you're not secular, all that crap. But the thing is, they have the audacity to say, in the Kashmiri Pandit case, right? You know what they said? They said, too much time has passed. Henceforth, we will not interrogate in the Kashmiri Pandit matter. The case will not be reopened and heard. So the right to justice was only denied.
Absolutely. See, this is one way or the other, to get away with it and not give justice to any set of people, right? Just because they come from one particular community, which is the Hindu community, and how biased they are towards another set of communities, also because of this one corruption and everything. And let's not forget, the political parties completely involved in all these things. अब कोई चूतिया यहाँ पे आके लिखेगा, तुम इसके बारे में क्यों नहीं बात कर रहे हो, तुम उसके बारे में क्यों नहीं बात कर रहे हो, तुम फेक इंफॉर्मेशन क्यों स्प्रेड कर रहे हो? यार, go open a room and discuss about it in your room, no? Why the hell are you over here and telling us what we need to discuss?
I would say in this room, I think it's safe to say, I think we will not talk about the other side. We will not.
Absolutely.
You can talk about it. We will talk about our community, which is our problems that the Hindus are facing, the attacks that Hindus are facing. In the Delhi riot case only, when Ankit Sharma was killed so, I don't know what to say, to be very honest. He was killed so brutally. 51 times. Can you imagine stabbing a person when he was alive and his intestines fell out? Anyways, after this, the government, the state government of Delhi, of course, Aam Aadmi Party and Kejriwal, for a piece of shit that person is, his party member comes to a national television debate and says, we have compensated Ankit Sharma's family by giving him a government job. When they were questioned about Ankit Sharma's death, this was their response. I was so infuriated when I heard that. They said, to compensate, we have given Ankit Sharma's brother a job. This is actually what the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson said on national television.
हाँ, मार के गवर्नमेंट जॉब दे तो फैमिली मेंबर को हो गया justice. I would also go beyond, have you read the Bilkis Bano judgment?
No, I haven't, but if you want to, is there some severe flaw even?
Yeah, just like authorities. there are serial flaws in that. What they say that all 12 accused or they are convicted of gang rape, all of them. No. In the judgment itself, it's written that Bilkis Bano only identified 3 people. And out of those 3 people, 1 died in the riots, 2 died in custody. And all this rest of the people who are accused, they were all, like she says that they were all covered up, so I could not recognize anyone. However, what the judiciary did, they took so many itne sare witness laye, and what they did, they connected them. Like, matlab ki suppose I go daily to a chai ki
just
tapri.
like the Kathwari.
Exactly. मैं कहीं चाय की टपरी पे डेली जा रहा हूँ, चाय वाले को पकड़. He is associated with that. ऐसे कर the rest, like 8 of them, 3 of them were actually they were right, but 8 of them they didn't have any idea क्या हो रहा है, क्यों उठा के लेके जा. अभी तक भी उनको idea. They don't have any idea why are they in the jail. केस यही पूरा जजमेंट में पढ़ा है, it sounded so wrong. लेकिन एक तो रेप भी प्रूव नहीं हुआ. 3 मेडिकल स्टूडेंट है, कहीं भी रेप प्रूव नहीं हुआ. और उसने भी जो जाकर 11 जनों को मिली, 3 जनों को आइडेंट किया, वो 2 उसमें से मर गए, एक पता नहीं जिंदा है कि नहीं, और बाकी 8 जन उसका पहचानने से इनकार कर दिया. बट they found some witness. God knows how did they found so many witnesses, and they were all convicted.
So that's what I'm saying. The left is always hand in glove with the Islamist lobby to tarnish Hindus. Even in the case of the Delhi riots, right? It is so evident that, see, the thing is, the argument that they are giving is that Muslims died more, so it is an anti-Muslim riot. See, the thing is, who started the riot? That is the question. The riots planning started from actually December 5th of 2019 at the PFI office in Shaheen Bagh, where Sharjil Imam, Tahir Hussain, Amanullah Khan, all of these people, Umar Khalid, they all met to discuss how to cause a riot according to the charge sheets. So that decides if a riot is anti-Hindu or anti-Muslim.
Exactly. Like they said that riot started. उससे पहले बच्चे कौन जला रहा? Who was creating ruckus in Delhi day and night? Muslim. And what were they protesting in the CA, which is meant for helping the Hindus? Bangladeshi,
could you please tell me, Northam, that one case of a Hindu boy who was killed by Muslims and his, the Muslim girl and her family for loving a Hindu. I'm forgetting, it was in Delhi. And, the whole thing with the police also, when the police says it is not a communal agenda. Right. The police said there was a communal angle to it. But when, actual charge sheets were read, in that, the girl's mother is saying her son and her father and her brother to go and kill this boy and protect our girl and the honor of Islam.
Like their literal words don't mean anything by the court, but interpretation done by somebody in the media, that is considered by the court as a word of God. Interpretation, mere interpretation of the whatever this stupid media is telling. That is considered as the golden. Do not trust any medium. Whenever you hear a case, take a step back, read, wait for some days, let more and more details come out. Whenever the trials do, if it's possible, I don't think live sessions would be. I think court should conduct live session of this also. जैसे कि सिविल केसेस का होते हैं, लाइव टेलीकास्ट होता है, उसी तरह से सारे केसेस का लाइव टेलीकास्ट करवाओ. I want to see how dumb can judiciary be?
All right. So, would you guys mind moving on to something else? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Mods, would that be okay? Can we discuss something else? Well,
roam around and in the end will come to Hindu phobia. Like हम घूमते रहेंगे, but basic जो structural Hindu phobia है, structural systemic, उसी पर ही
I'll tell you what happened, Dortham. Last time, Sikh was using this Asifa case and trying to shut us down, and that time even I didn't have answers. But I read upon this now, and that's why I was telling.
All the cases.
I appreciate that, Nisha. Thank you for filling in the blanks, and we're better educated now thanks to the effort that you've put in. Let's do a room around this, maybe at much more length and width. But in the meanwhile, Tejaswini had an idea. Tejaswini, do you want to reset the room further to what you had in mind? And hello, Neil. Hello, Doctor. I just got back in. Just doing something else with my phone. Tej, are you there?
Yeah.
No, so you want to do a room on Brahminical patriarchy. So is Brahminical patriarchy even real? Is it even real? What do you guys think?
I think the definition.
In what sense do you mean real? I think that's what I'd ask. I mean, see, because when we're talking about it, usually from a Western context, it is scriptural. So are we saying scriptural, or are we saying in practice? I think that's a clarification I need before speaking.
So why don't you unpack that? What form of Brahminical patriarchy even exists?
I think patriarchy exists as a function of how our economies and our lives used to work out for us for most of human history. I think there are scriptural texts used as justification for these systems, right? As a way of fortifying them. They may exist. I don't know, which is why I asked. Because if you were to say that you were talking about the scriptural part, I would just give up, right? Because I don't know that much, so I can't say with certainty. But I think in lived experience, I think it's almost universal that there is a patriarchy, air quotes, that ends up existing all throughout the world. So.
Okay, so if that's the case, let me ask you a follow-up question. Adrian, welcome. The question is this. If patriarchy exists all over the world, is Brahminical patriarchy a different kind of patriarchy? Or is it the same thing? Where are you at on that front?
I'm not even agreeing that there is a thing called Brahminical patriarchy. I'm just saying that maybe you could make that distinction, but a patriarchy in function does exist in India. I don't think there is any doubt about that. Adrian, hello, welcome to the stage. I think you have something to say. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been to India, so I don't really know how patriarchal it truly is. If it's more patriarchal outside of the major city centers, I assume. But I mean, I've heard expressions like a true Brahmin. It's not matriarchy or patriarchy. Isn't it just really wisdom? And in 2025, a woman can pursue wisdom in the same way that a man pursues wisdom. So, but then there's also this genderless state which supersedes these modalities of gender governance. But I think esoterically, astrologically, we're living in like a matriarchy now as opposed to the patriarchy. And I don't know if that has to do with the Indian cycle of time or conceptually, but I would just say that wisdom or the Brahmin way is genderless because, you know, it's true liberation and a man or a woman should pursue it.
Could I just say one thing on this topic?
Please go for it.
I don't think there is anything like a Brahminical patriarchy. I think when they say the word Brahminical patriarchy, they talk about stupid things like, why aren't you marrying us? You know, the whole thing of you have to, the whole, this idea of, destroying Brahminical patriarchy comes from the Ambedkarite politics, right? And the Ambedkarism in a way. And what does it say though? It talks about annihilating caste, but the expense of annihilating caste, which they talk about, is at the expense ki Brahmins should give away their daughters to Dalits to marry. And if you don't do it, for example, you can prefer to marry within your own caste, right? But if you choose to do that, you automatically become a casteist. So the term Brahminical patriarchy, casteism, these things are very loose terms which people use just because they want to, marry and have relations within their own caste. I don't think that is casteist. So Brahminical patriarchy is not true.
In fact, Lord Buddha, Gautama Buddha said that Brahmins are lower than dogs because they were intermarrying with other castes. So, this is fundamental that, Brahmins are hegemonical or they're extremely endogamous. That's not.
Fair. I feel like the term itself is how would you put it? It's kind of seeding an idea, It's kind of trying to say that if this particular class of people did not exist, there would not be a patriarchy in this land, which I vehemently disagree with. If there's one thing that is true is that all men are same. And to say that this one particular group of people is somehow responsible, because that is the perspective from which this idea comes from, right? The leftist progressive perspective is basically trying to power dynamic out of this very complex problem, simply because that's the only dialectic they know how to use properly. And that's basically where they're at. It doesn't mean that we should be at the mercy of those same ideas, right? I think it's often best to just ignore such things, at least, especially if they're Western ideas. Because, even though Brahminical patriarchy was created, I believe it was created by an Indian, but their ideas were not Indian. Their ideas were all Western.
So, when I travel across the world, you just look at the Middle East, women are often wrapped up in a bin bag. You look at Africa, large parts of Africa, women just aren't even looked at as equals. And I don't ever hear the word Islamic patriarchy. You look at, virtually any parameter. You look at, workforce, women's representation in workforce and body politic, in the academy, in the media. Even in women's rights issues, women are extremely underrepresented in the Middle East. Now it gets even worse as we go into Saudi Arabia, and these are meccas, no pun intended, of Islam, for example. And, they aren't alluded to, they aren't referred to as, Islamic patriarchy. No, it's not. Nobody ever does use them words. I wonder if, the allegation that, Brahmins, and I'm going to make my second point here, if the insinuation is that Brahmins have ruled this country for 5,000 years across every state, every region, and this is a 3 to 4% population, for all of 5,000 years, then I think they should have the Brahmin guys confused as supermen. Because the average Brahmin guy, when you walk out of your house, you go look at the guy is either working in a temple, or he's, performing death rituals for the average guy, or as a tax consultant or as a lawyer or is selling papads in your streets. I don't know how that population of 3% or 4%, typically split in the center, which is about 1.5% of men, can actually control 5,000 years of all of your history.
You see,
now, if that is if it is true, then let me ask the difficult question that needs to be asked. If 1.5% of your population have controlled all of your society for all of your time, then you might as well submit to them. It makes no sense.
Exactly, and it's completely ahistorical, right? It is completely ahistorical.
Yeah, go ahead, Isha, please. Sorry, what is that?
I'm saying the other example that they.
Isha, आपकी आवाज वापस quaint आ रहा मेरे को.
I'm saying the other example they give of Brahminical patriarchy, so to say, is rituals of temples. For example, in the case of Sabri.
Is it just me or is Isha quaint?
Is my voice not clear?
The volume is a bit low.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, I hope I'm audible.
Oh yeah, now you're audible.
Right. So whenever we.
And now you're gone.
No, I'm saying whenever they say Brahminical patriarchy, they always attack rituals of temples. Now the thing is, it's very simple. If you enter a temple, you bloody abide by the rules of the temple or do not enter it. It is not your public property. For example, in the case of Sabrimala temple, they stormed the entire issue of Sabrimala, which is a ritualistic thing that in that particular temple of Ayappa, because he's an ethnic brahmachari, women in their reproductive age do not enter that temple. That was the ritual of the temple, which was attacked again and again in the name of Brahminical patriarchy. Now, again, it is happening in Kerala, where, the rules in Agamic temple is that men do not wear their upper garments. They wear a dhoti and they, that is the rule. They don't wear a shirt or a t-shirt or a kurta on the top. Now, that is being attacked as Brahminical patriarchy. It's the rules of the temple. You don't want to follow those rules, do not go to those temples. Go to other temples. Temple is not your daddy's property, for lack of better words, right? You follow the rules, you go there. You don't want to follow the rules, don't go there.
See, it looks like it feels an awful lot like no matter what, sometimes you can't catch a break. Because you look at, for example, the Indian left, the argument is against the Brahmin. You look at the evangelical aspects of societies, the argument is against the Brahmin. If you look at the Islamic right, the argument is against the Brahmin. The Khalistani argument is against the Brahmin. It's always Brahmin. Dravidians, the argument is against the Brahmin. The Kashmiri Pandits, genocide was entirely because they were Brahmins. So it's just not, I don't know. The few, do you feel like you have a future in the country as a Brahmin at all? Or do you think Brahmins should leave India and go?
What is the point of leaving India and going? Where would you go? Because as much as I'm concerned, outside India as well, as they are fighting for affirmative actions in the name of caste. So if you know about something called as Equality Labs, they tried to pass caste discrimination bill in the US. I'm not kidding you. They tried to pass caste discriminatory affirmative actions on caste. This organization, Equality Labs, is a George Soros-funded organization, which it was more like a communal violence bill. The moment there's communal violence, a Hindu will get arrested. What the Congress wanted to bring. The same thing is propagated by the Ambedkarites. It was in the US. Thankfully, it didn't get passed by the grace of Bhagwan, but they had this plan. So there's no running up.
Have you ever heard of the concept no Jews, no news? Meaning that, I'm just saying that in terms of the communication network, you're being gamed by everything, but mostly by the media, meaning that like in India, probably, you know, a constant communication about Muslims, Hindu, or, you know, Islamists is like, it's selling a lot of clicks. So like, how do you know that you're not being a victim of clickbait versus how do you know that your judiciary or your leadership haven't sold out to essentially being woke leftists?
Because we've actually known about these issues for a lot longer than they've been woke.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying I agree with you that Islam is a primary problem. It just seems like very polarizing, like everything. Because if you read Rumi and you read poetry, you can de-radicalize a Muslim Islamist, low IQ, vulgar person. I mean, I don't think Islam is necessarily bad. I think bad people use Islam to become even worse. If you're a good person, you'll try to correct your bad brother in Islam. So how do you essentially, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, how do you know you're not being tricked for clicks?
Again, because, you know, this is not a pattern that we only see in our own country. Okay? This is a pattern that we see across the world. We're just one of the examples of this happening. You know, I myself, you know, am a non-believer. But if you ask me, I would specifically pick out Islam as a religion that is uniquely toxic to every land that it visits because its goal is to take over. Just read the book. Just read what they quote. You know, if you're talking to a Muslim, you talk to them for an hour, and you actually read every single book that they've quoted, and you'll understand what their worldview is like. You know, why they are the way they are. Right, and I understand the point that you make about the mistakes. You know, that is actually one of the things I myself advocate for is the defanging of the religion. Right, I want to defang Islam. I want to, in that sense, completely desecrate it. But you know, that is something that is a civilizational project. You know. And that may seem cruel, but
the way I would approach that is not get you know. Okay, so let me rephrase that. Sorry, I'm also doing something, so I could be a little scarce today. So my larger submission is the way, if you grew up in India like the rest of us did, for example, particularly of Brahmin descent and persuasion, you would have noticed that you probably had to work considerably longer, harder than the average person from certain other strata of life. Now, I don't want to dwell too deep, but at a very early age in my life, I lost one of my really good friends right after school. A fellow Brahmin, I still remember, thick eyebrows, geeky as fuck, really thick eyeglasses. He used to have these curved fingers, you know, the brilliant people are believed to have. Chess player. He was the first guy that I saw that was making notes of each and every one of his chess moves. I didn't know you could do that in chess. He would just take serious notes. Every move he made, he'll have a little book and he'll make notes. Brilliant guy. Scored 98.5% in a CBSE, which is pretty good. And especially, you know, did well in STEM. First list in the Indian universities. I got into the university because I also had a combination of sports, so I could, you know, get through both quotas. But this guy was a geek. Unfortunately, he couldn't play, so his only bet was his education. I remember first list right outside the university, wooden, you know, frame. The names were published. The guy comes with this geeky thing, almost examining the mark sheets and, you know, the list with his thick glasses. Looks in list number one. He was also a self-talker. He'll talk to himself. He'll keep talking to himself. Very sweet guy. And he went back home. He had this cotton bag that lower middle class Brahmins usually carry around, with a kurta, a trouser, batas, chappals. He's as lower middle class as it got. And first list, no name. Comes back, second list in a few days, yet again, no name. Comes back, third list, no name. Went back home and immolated himself. Now, this is not a one-off story. It's not.
No, Ambedkarites, they have no meritocracy of their own. Like I see their ridiculous tweets on Twitter, which makes my blood boil that we are, giving our precious seat for such idiots of the highest order.
Yes, and the thing is, what do you do? I mean, okay, so you say I'm a Brahmin and I can't change my caste according to the government of India. I can change my religion apparently, but I can't change my caste. And I'm all of 6 months old. I'm born into the world, and I have to perform above 97% to have a reasonable shot. I'm not very wealthy. And what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, dear government of India? That's the reason why Brahmins left India back in the day. Where do you think Sundar Pichai, that batch, where do you think these guys come from? I don't know if Brahmins have a future in this country. I seriously don't know. The Pandits, would they be genocided if they were in Brahmins? Would the Union of India, the central government, been more compassionate? Would they have moved faster if those dead bodies were in thread-bearing? Mother India will care deeply about you even when you're dead, as long as you don't wear the thread. The moment you wear a thread, that's it. Even if you die, Mother India, 1.5 lakh people kicked out. Thousands dead inside a week and a half. You think this could have happened to Dalits? God forbid. You think it could have happened to Muslims? 1.5 lakh Muslims getting out of a state in 2 weeks? No. Mother India, Union of India, not even an inquiry commission into it. Till date, the Pandits are running around like beggars in Delhi. Why? Because they're Brahmins. I'll never forget my friend, never. And I can tell you, I lost another distant niece of mine, doctor, brilliant, outstanding girl, had all the grades, killed herself. You know why? She couldn't make it to med school. It's not a one-off case. Every state, if you are a Brahmin, just look at the reservations. Look at the average score that Brahmin kids have to make to get in order to, let me rephrase that. Look at the average score that Brahmin kids will have to secure in order to get into a good school. I don't know if India is a good bet for Brahmins. I don't think it is. Quickly, I'll land by saying that very close friend of mine, wife, Tamil Brahmin Iyer in Bangalore, moved from Chennai. Close friend, I know him since 6 years old. Got married. The wife, she was also a Tambram girl. Didn't see a future for her 2 children. They have a daughter, they have a son. The wife gave an ultimatum saying, I don't see my kids being raised here. And the husband said, but my parents are ailing, I can't leave. The wife said, that's your headache, because I don't want my children to rot in this country. They'll be hunted because they're Brahmins. And she's now in Prague. She moved 2 years ago. Because the daughter wanted to be a doctor. And she doesn't think that Brahmin kids will be treated fairly in this country. It's happening. Why should Brahmins be in India?
I think, the name is of Brahmins, but...
Isha, sorry, you're not very loud. Sorry, Isha.
I'm saying that I think the excuse of attacking people is in the name of Brahmins, but generally when it is about these caste and affirmative actions, it is an attack on all general castes. You remember, right, in UP there was a slogan saying basically what, I don't remember the exact slogan which was raised, but it basically said that the Baniyas, the Rajputs and the Brahmins will be, wiped out of UP and it will be only for the Yadavs and the Dalits. These were political slogans back. which is still the mindset in a lot of places. So when we see, for example, reservations is going crazy. They are demanding reservations in the private sector now, forget public. They are demanding reservations in private sector. The reservations are so high. Plural, I'll tell you. I had applied for a Central University entrance exam in Delhi University, and the Delhi University's generally cutoff is 91, 92%. Me, despite scoring 90%, I could not get in because there was a high reservation this time. So, I mean, you're giving too much for free in the name of affirmative action, because clearly it's not working, because that community is still under 70 years. So clearly this model of reservation has failed the country. And the hatred for the general caste, I'm sorry, there is no, especially the Brahmins, there is no, you can say, consequences a person has to face to spew such venom. There's no consequences. Recently in Goa, atheist writer called all, the priests of a temple, saying that these people loot and they are looters and they are dacoits of the highest order. So, that is how the state of the general caste is in India, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's terrible. I'm sorry to hear about your thing, Isha. You should have gotten into the best team. He's given your grades.
Cool. That's fine. But I'm just giving an example. It's not that I'm very upset about it. That was one of the things. So, the reservation thing is such a scam. It has not worked out for anybody, but it will be there in the political thing, because every political party plays their politics in the name of caste. So, it's bound to happen. Like even for the BJP to say, who are so much about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, when the Supreme Court redirected few sections of the SC/ST Act to say you can't arrest randomly people just because somebody said something, BJP brought an ordinance and overturned the judgment. So now the SC/ST Act is even more stronger than it used to be before.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, Adrian, I think you've been holding back. You want to go? Sorry,
I have a really old book from the 1890s, came out of England by Charles Johnson. It's called From the Upanishads, and he translated, I guess, the Upanishads into English. I just want to read one brief verse. Maybe it'll be of interest to you all. It says, "For this self is the seer, toucher, hearer, smeller, taster, thinker, knower, doer, the perceiving spirit. And this is set firm in the supreme, unchanging self. He reaches the supreme unchanging who knows the shadowless, bodiless, colorless, bright, unchanging one. He, dear, becomes all-knowing, becomes the all." And there is this verse, "He who knows the unchanging one, where he set firm the perceiving self, with all the powers, all lives and beings, he verily, all-knowing, has entered the all." So, I mean, to me, this is like Greek or Roman philosophy. It's universal. And when you contrast that with the stubborn Muslim Islamist who says God is one, there's only one God, it is very much the all or the many versus the one, and then the one became all the many. It's just, I think it's a lack of education, the conflict with Muslims. I think Hindus are very accepting of the all or the many. So it is really like they're stuck in time, or they refuse to move. They're just so stubborn that, the problem is education and communication, and then anger management. And so acts of violence is really a lack of understanding self, because when you commit an act of violence, you're really hurting yourself. And so I don't know, I don't think you have to worry about the future. And I don't think you have to think there's a speck of dust out of place in the whole universe. To me, there's a great equilibrium, but you have to be vigilant, well-educated, and strong in the face of stubborn, ignorant, vulgar people.
Yeah, I mean, one of our theories is that the reason why India is pluralistic and even within quote secular is because the Hindus are in majority. And, when they had a chance back in the day when India and Pakistan were both conceived just about the same day, Pakistan went free one day earlier than India did, for what that's worth. And, the Pakistanis were very clear. They wanted an Islamic nation. The constitution, everything that happened subsequently is something that they would say is consistent with their tradition. But when India, a country which had way more complexity in terms of geography, number of people, tribes, ethnicities, languages, religions, the Hindus went ahead and wrote one of the most pluralistic documents written by humanity. And the idea that all of us are equal, the idea that all of us are conceived in the image of God, the whole thing that you read out was so beautiful for us. Wherein one becoming many, and then eventually blending back and falling into one, this kind of a flux. And that, they wrote one of the most pluralistic documents where there was never a debate on whether women should vote, Dalits should vote, non-Hindus should, no debate. You go through the discussions of the Constituent Assembly, you just won't find those debates. And, we look back now, and back in the day, socialism was in vogue like it is now. And Pandit Nehru went to the UK to get himself schooled. And communism was basically in vogue as well to some extent in the emerging order. But India took the bold move, the bold experiment of being an open society, a social experiment which is continuing, wherein everybody is conceived in the image of the divine. And if it's not for the Hindus being in majority, that just would not be possible. It just won't be possible. So pluralism is something that's inherent to the society. And it's terrible. What's happened to our people is just terrible. The last thing we want is to have a sense of being a victim. We don't want that because feeling like a victim very quickly can be flipped on its head and you could feel very entitled. In 2 decades' time, victims can sound like they're so entitled. So we don't want that for ourselves. What we do look forward to is a country which is conceived in our principles of the Vedas and the Upanishads and whatnot. And that's really not a right-wing idea. It's just not. It's a liberal idea. That's why the Hindus don't have a right wing. These right-wing Hindus that run around Clubhouse and whatnot and call themselves right-wing, they really don't know what they're talking. They're not right-wing at all. They're just not.
See, the reality is also the liberals so-called liberals in India, you can call them as pseudo-liberals, are not even liberals, right? They can't view things with a liberal view. They're already surrounded within that four box that the moment they start going beyond it and start thinking out of the box, they will be outcasted itself. So how does it matter? And I just have one question over here. I mean, you were talking about this constitutional debate, right? Can you just throw some light on what were you telling about what was it that actually they didn't discuss in the constitutional debate, which you actually pointed out over here just few seconds back? I think it was relating to Hindu issues.
I was saying that the debates never even found it necessary to engage with ideas as frivolous as whether men and women are equal, whether Dalits and Brahmins and Hindus and Muslims are equal. There's no portion of the discussion, and everything was minuted. You go back, every word was minuted. You find that nobody ever said, there's no remote, not even an insinuation that should women be allowed to vote. No, it was a given, it was a done deal from the get-go. When the Hindus are in majority, and you look at those that actually wrote the Constitution, I dug this out the other day, there were 7 people in the Constituent Assembly, 5 of them were Brahmins. And the reason why that becomes important is because they talk about Brahminical patriarchy, and apparently they created this tyrannical system that makes everybody else that's not a Brahmin an undertaker of sorts, and they're supposed to languish at the pits of society. But when they actually got a chance to do just that, what did the Brahmins do? They wrote a liberal constitution. All of them are practicing. That was an Iyer. If you just Google, Ambedkar was the chairman. He was not the creator of the draft of the Constitution. B.N. Rao was a Brahmin. There was an Iyer guy, last name Iyer. There's an Iyengar guy, last name Iyengar. Two other Brahmin names out of the 7 guys. What did these tyrannical people do? They gave this country its constitution. How can this community be fundamentally patriotic? I just don't get it. I don't get the politics of this country. You know, to saw a woman in two when she's alive in front of her child, to do that just because you're born into a certain identity group, and this country is going to not even investigate that. Now, what happened to the Chitpavan Brahmins after Gandhi's unfortunate death? 15,000 slaughtered in the next 2 days. Tamil Nadu flushed out its Brahmins. Kashmir flushed them out. How did the South Indian Tambrans get to Delhi? Madrasi or Chaprasi, remember that was the thing. Mumbai, Matunga filled with Tambrans. How did that happen? I think I've spoken about this previously. I've had ink sprayed to my face when I was carrying the dead body of my grandfather. And I was told Papan Origa. In Tamil, that means Papan is a derogatory word. It's like the N-word for Brahmins in Tamil Nadu, in Tamil. So 4 guys got off the bike. This little Camlin ink pen that you used to have back in the day, the felt pen. So you'll have a little glass slice in between, so you can tell how much ink is there in between. So all 4 of them are carrying it. They opened it. They unscrewed the top and they poured it on. We were 13-year-old kids carrying the dead bodies, 13, 14, 15, and they just sprayed it on her face and they said, "Papa Origa." It happened to me. My father had his hair cut off. My grandfather had his business razed. He had to restart his career with 4 daughters, 3 sons, children. And we never let go. You know, I had a chance to move out of India. I did well in my career. God's been kind. I've been lucky. Society has been generous, of course. But I came back home. We never left. It's terrible what's happening to the Brahmins. It's terrible.
And people still spread this narrative that, the Brahmins should be eradicated completely. Completely be finished. That's the whole problem, in even today. Just see the atrocities, right? I mean, atrocity that these people have, even today.
I look at Twitter, right? The praise in comments on raping Brahmin girls, making sure that Dalit guys rape Brahmin girls. So that Brahmins don't have, there should be no next generation Brahmin, because you should just do the kind of wild shit that they talk about to our women. And that being retweeted hundreds of thousands of times. And that's not even being deplatformed, right? Those comments are right there to be seen. They're right there. You go to Twitter, you'll see them. So we're not even making it up. Like, we're not talking 1991 Pandit Jan. We're talking about today's tweets. It happens every day. It's ridiculous. And so I don't blame my friend's wife. She gave him an ultimatum saying, I don't want my daughter to go through this. I want her to be a doctor. She wants, I don't think, no, she moved to Prague. That's it. It's now been 2 years. She's getting a whatever, blue card, whatever. And then she wants to go to jail. Highly educated lady. Highly educated. Extremely skilled. Now works in leadership in tech. In one of India's famed big fours. Sorry, not India's, one of America's famed big tech companies. the cricketers, the Brahmins who were cricketers, Ganguly, Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar, Sanjay Manjrekar, Rahul Dravid, Anil Kumble, Javagal Srinath, Krishnamachari, Srikanth, did they make you feel like they were Brahmins or did they make you feel like they were Indians? Did they would carry your tricolor and plant it on global competitive sports, or did they take their poonal or their thread and then make you feel like they're Brahmins? And what do you get at the end of it? You get a bad name. So if you're going to get a bad name anyway, then why be good? And you have to look at it as a young boy, right? A young boy, blood coursing through your veins. We've all been there.
Some things in the Bible I just have to.
What kind of a message does this send to society, to young Brahmin boys? There's no point in being a good person. That's why I wonder if it's time for Brahmins to leave this country. Maybe it is. It's not a bad idea.
I don't know. Perhaps it is. That is certainly a trend that we have seen. There's a trend that I've seen as well. But honestly, I don't really. I like to be an optimist about things like this. I'd say, given our economic trajectory, there's a good chance that we're able to break a lot of the archaic social beliefs that bind us. I mean, this is just one of them, right? There's several that we need to face. I feel that as we become economically prosperous, people will hopefully gain the wherewithal to actually contend with these issues, because the way it goes right now is just ignorance, right? Or denial. There really isn't anything in the middle. I feel like it might take some time, but I wouldn't give up hope yet.
Well, it's like Jews.
Yeah, so there was this young lady, Anuradha Tiwari, if you remember, just recently, she just posted a picture, a selfie of herself with her triceps, and she said Brahmin genes. Basically, there was muscle, and because she was vegetarian, I know the community. Because my friends mock me, some of my, not even my Pakistani friends mock me, saying, Abhi ghas bhoos kha raha hai. You know, kind of a thing. So I'm reasonably all right, but I'm reasonably in shape. I try to keep as active as possible. But if back in the day I used to mock them, saying, "Dude, look at this vegetarian. You know, look at this. Look at your meat biceps. Look at my veggie biceps. You know." So basically, what she did is she said, "Brahmin genes in that vein. I know the community very well, and look at the shitstorm that took over Twitter. Just look at that."
Yeah, look, people are always looking for a boogeyman. I think cultures need boogeymen, I guess, if they are stupid enough. I mean, just look at what how it works in the Middle East, right? Their entire national positions, in the sense their zeitgeist is centered around these fictional forces. I feel like it is better we stick to the ground.
Yeah, I'm just putting up YouTube shorts of this young lady who was, on national television for, I don't know, maybe the right reason, the wrong reason, I don't know.
I know what you're talking about. I actually followed Anuradha even before this entire thing happened.
I see.
So, it was, but it was not a surprise to me, honestly, because it's certainly par for course for what happens in this country every day. Certain communities are immune, and some of them are demonized for no reason.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, Jews in France, Jews in all parts of the world that are facing, you know, Islamic violence, a lot of them do move and they do leave and go to Israel where they feel that their rights will be secured. So, but it's a shifting thing. It's like you go there, you absorb it, and then you might go back. You don't just stick to one spot. You go where the money goes. You go and you bring the wisdom with you. So if Brahmins want to leave and go to California or go to Greenland, you're bringing the transmission of the wisdom with you, and you might return. But it's too all or nothing to say, you know, should everybody leave? Because nobody ever leaves. And I often tell Jews who want to move to Israel, I say, before you move to Israel, you should know that Israel is within you. You don't go to Israel. You already have it inside of in your soul or your mind, and you need the wisdom. So, you know, that's the thing is, I think if you're really strategic, you would go nowhere. You would continue the search of self within, and then you would essentially, in order to secure yourself, you would manipulate Muslims and de-radicalize, like you said, defang. And, you know, this is like next level PSYOP warfare where you prevent terrorism by de-radicalizing at the subconscious level. I mean, the government should be engaged in a subconscious information de-radicalization campaign. You know, I mean, that or...
You see, I don't think it's anything new. You see, I think this has always happened in cultures, you know, regardless of the way it actually manifests itself. Usually, it's quite disastrous if you look at history. But at one point or another, you don't have a choice. You can't give up your civilization on you know, the altar of your ideals. Because you see that's what's happening in the West, right? Or at least was. Fortunately, it seems like Europeans are finally waking up. Good for them. Let's see. We'll see. But this is what they've done for the past, I don't know, at least 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything new under the sun. I mean, all you can do is just continue to do and go and continue education. I mean, terrorism and war and famine and disease and devastation and calumny, it's never going away. But the wise ones guard, you know, themselves, and they guard their thoughts, because if a Muslim gaslighting troll is going to destroy your peace, well, then you have no real security because you're not in control of the situation, the environment, and thus yourself. And that's the reality. I mean, it's a very dangerous place throughout the world now because these ignorant, vulgar, all or nothing terrorists have been spread throughout the planet by liberal, low IQ, ignorant clown people who have set fire to the world by, you know, lax immigration laws and piss poor policies and understanding of the human condition and human nature. I mean, most countries build up. Instead, they've just blown it apart, and everyone is now suffering as a result of putting clown people in leadership positions.
I don't think it's too far gone though. I think if let's say, you know, what is happening today in Europe did not happen for say a decade, or I think even a decade is too much. Let's say 5 years. I think then it would be too late. Look at what I think just I think in the last 24 hours, there was a town in Ireland in which the court officially showed the flag of Pakistan behind a judge, and they pulled down the Irish flag. Imagine that. It is unbelievable. And there are things like this happening all over Europe. Somehow people just think that it's okay. And it's not okay. It should not be okay. But this white guilt syndrome is really coming to bite them in the ass. And I think the people are waking up now because, you see, what's happening in Sweden, right? I remember back in 2014 when the news came out that the Swedish government had decided to stop sharing information publicly. I was immediately alerted to it because I had been hearing about illegal immigration, right? And I'd been hearing about some of the crimes because I have naturally been interested in these issues for quite a while. And it took them a decade, right? It was early, I think it was early to last year that they actually released those reports. Was it last year? I'm not sure, but it was almost 10 years. It took them almost 10 years to actually start publishing the information again. Guess why? It was because illegal immigration was causing a spike in violence, right? And regardless of the statistical significance of that violence, it was the people's right to know that this was causing issues for them, right? But that was something that was subverted in the name of inclusion. That is unfair to the people of Sweden. But in their hubris, they decided that this was the right course of action to take all over Europe. And you're seeing the far right rising as a direct consequence of it, right? I mean, there are other policies in the mix as well, I'm sure. But more or less, that is what is happening in Europe.
Yeah, Germany is no longer Germany. And Elon Musk on X, he's talking to this Naomi Siebert, this girl yesterday who is a political pundit. The far right in Germany is not necessarily the far right of 1945 or other forms of far right. It's always hard to specifically pin down far right. But I do know when I hear far right people, I do get disgusted because it's not necessarily universal, but at the same time, they leave out a lot in their argument, or at least in their identity. So they themselves become tiresome and boring and obnoxious. It's like, how do you get the good equilibrium? I don't know. It's just, this is life. Like, welcome to life. It's disgusting. There's nasty people out there. They're all over the place. And you never know when one of them is going to look at you the wrong way and take, a psychotic act against you. So, what can you do? I mean, welcome to life again. It was the same in the year 300 as it is today. I mean, conflict, violence, anger, rage, sadness, grief, all these emotions and lack of education now is more pervasive than ever. Everyone is just a screen doom scroller. No one is picking up any books from any parts of the world and studying any ancient wisdom. And you can see it in the lives of people. Their lives are full of anxiety, full of depression, full of really short-term dopamine. Everyone has this 5-second attention span now. I don't care if you're a doctor, a philosopher, a theologian. It's rampant. No one has any patience. Everyone is road raging all the time. I was listening to Elon Musk driving his Tesla through traffic yesterday. He was screaming into X and about how stupid people are. They don't know how to fucking drive. We need robot taxis immediately. Like, that's not equilibrium. That's not mental health. That's not wisdom. That's road raging. And that's what everybody's doing.
Trust me, I work in social media. So I do this and I read about it for a living. Social media is one of, if not the most disruptive communication technology that we have ever developed. I don't think we truly understand what we have done with democratizing the internet and bringing forth social media, I think we will understand over the next decade what we have truly done to ourselves, because right now the consensus is that it is really bad. But the unfortunate reality is that social media hasn't really been a pervasive part of the human experience for more than a decade, right? And even today, it's still expanding, right? It is a part of a majority of humanity, but it's not a part of all of humanity. But it really will reach that stage sooner or later. So it really remains to be seen what is going to happen. 10 years down the line, maybe nothing happens. There's a nothing burger, but I don't think so. I think we have fundamentally broken down a lot of the ways in which we were coping with life, and that will be bad in the short run. But if you think about it, at least if you from an academic perspective, the democratization of information has a lot of benefits, right? In theory, right? In reality, it turns out to be something quite different. At least we've seen that quite apparently with all of the arguments given for the internet and then for social media. That for the internet, perhaps it was, but back in the day, it was access to information would rapidly increase the rate of human advancement, and people would become like geniuses because they would have unfettered access. Well, nothing like that happened, right? People just started doing things they liked on the internet. They weren't really consuming information as much. The same thing happened with social media. The argument for social media was it would lead to a new frontier of human communication, and that's very important, right? Because all of the things that you were talking about that are scary about the world, the one solution, the most successful solution that human beings have found for it is community, right? It is banding together. It is working together. That is the one thing that is the strongest weapon that we have against this uncertainty. I think that while it has the potential to get us to that, social media, because we don't know how to use it, it's not really giving us the kind of results that it would give us perhaps in another reality.
Yeah, but there's only this reality. I mean, if you look at the rat experiments with cocaine, that what is the difference? It's a dopamine drip. So the thing is, in China, they've cleaned up their algorithm, and thus they've cleaned up the collective consciousness of the users on the platforms. But because we have this democratized information exchange, you have so much negativity being pumped into the system because it flares the dopamine. There's no control over the communication, and thus a lot of terrorists or murderers integrate their cell phone usage with their activities. They film themselves committing acts of murder because there's an enhanced dopamine aspect to it. So from a medical device technology perspective, this app and a lot of other social media or platforms are dopamine wells or reservoirs that people tap into to get their feelings adjusted. But I'm just saying that without greater control, it's at the word level, the neurolinguistic programming level. If they have to clean it up, they can't let raw hatred continue to pervade these apps and lack of education, which deals with self.
Yep.
So there's no education on meditation. There's no knowledge, really true knowledge being explored or transmitted. And the platforms don't care because they want you looking at the app regardless of the context or content. They need your eyes for advertising revenue.
Yeah, all they care about is screen on time. At the end of the day, nothing else matters. Even things like engagement, they're just markers for an increased potential for viewing time. At the end of the day, it may matter to marketers, but for the platforms, it's really not that relevant at all. And I agree with you that a very important aspect of social media and internet as a whole is supposed to be the sharing of knowledge, and that is definitely not happening on social media. But I think that a big part of that is, I mean, one, you have the platform's responsibility, which nobody is taking, right? Facebook is not taking it, X is not taking it, no platform, no social media on this planet right now is taking a publisher's responsibility, right? They're trying to play the middle road because that is what they want, right? They want the best of both worlds, and they should not get that. They should decide, in my opinion. I feel the second part of the problem is much more important, and that is user education. User education about how to actually use these platforms. These should not be considered playthings. Okay, people should because that's just the magnitude of the difference that we see in terms of interactiveness, in terms of keeping attention onto it, right? I mean, it's sad, but I think nobody can disagree that an Instagram reel feed is usually a lot more addicting than a book, right? A book will keep you stuck on for more intellectual reasons, right? But on a biochemical level, what an app like Instagram or TikTok is giving you, it is incomparable to what a book is giving. There is no comparison when it comes to their ability to keep you hooked in that sense. So it is quite natural for people to move away from things that would not give them that dopamine hit, because at the end of the day, we are biological creatures, right? So I think it is a matter of education. I think we need to be aware of these things now. We should understand what is happening to our brains when we, get hooked onto Instagram, and suddenly it's 35 or 40 minutes later, right? Or TikTok or whatever other platform that is your poison of choice. These are things that we should be educated on. I think that is not happening at all. And it is something that is going to come and bite us all in the ass. At least in my generation, the young ones, at least.
Yeah, it takes a knowledgeable parent, though. I mean, kids are killing themselves on these phones, and parents are killing their kids on these phones, and the parents are killing themselves on the phones. It is just the modern day pack of cigarettes, but without the smoking, and they're not even breathing. So, I like to do activist interventions on this app. I'll go into a very toxic room that goes on for years, months, weeks, never ends, 24 hours a day. They're just all neurally networked, and they're all talking about nothing. They have the lowest IQ. You don't know anything about the people who are talking. There's no credentialing. There's no, verification of, but you can just tell by what they're saying. You're like, oh, this is a low IQ, uneducated person. And they're all just communicating endlessly, getting an endless dopamine supply, but they're not progressing as individuals. They're learning nothing. So I like to do activist intervention on this app. If you come on here and you read the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, anything that is wisdom-based is, to me, the best way to use this app. And social media should be like a collegiate setting. People who have these green beans, they don't run these rooms like they're teachers. They run these rooms like they're dopamine addicts.
I think on this platform, what is most prevalent is actually ego stroking, circle jerking. Actually, that's the more accurate term for it. I think that's what this app really runs on today, because that's all I see all day across lines. People on all sides of the spectrum on any issue are doing the same thing.
It's genius in the sense that this is like a shell or like a shelf, and it just provides a shelving technology where people can come and perch and circle jerk, but the app itself is not like some brilliant innovation, because it's the people that are essentially circle jerking, which is really just saying that they're hypnotizing themselves and hypnotizing others. And that is what we do as humans. So it's like, how do you escape the low IQ hypnosis to where at least if you're going to participate, you're getting a higher value for your time? And it's so rare that you come across a room where you're, really shook or intrigued or enlightened, and so it's just a lot of FUs and you're an idiot and you're a racist. And that's it. That's like the end of most arguments on this app. But I don't know. To me, it's a lot of fun because you get to see at a safe distance the insanity of people. Like if you want to look at it from like a voyeuristic perspective, it's a safe space to observe insanity. But, it's sad to sit there and observe insanity all the time. But anyways, I mean, I like Plural. His analysis is always generally very accurate and, unique. It's always unique takes. And, but anyways, what do you do in social media?
So I handle the social media profiles of large corporates, essentially. So we do all of the storytelling bit of the social media piece. We're not selling their products, we're telling their stories essentially on social media.
So how do you view like storytelling? I mean, how do you, I guess a better question is, how do you view manipulation using positive context? Is it immoral to not, like, how do you view your work? Do you spin the truth? Do you tell the truth? Do you, how do you view your work?
Considering that I'm working for a for-profit entity, there are certainly things that I can't talk about, and things that I don't want other people to talk about, right? That's a part of my job. So in that way, I'm quite neutral. I don't really judge, but the work that I do at my work, almost like that, almost in the way that a lawyer would look at their work, right? I don't necessarily need to agree with the things that the companies that I'm representing are actually doing on the ground, because I have, over the course of my short career, I have managed to work for banks. I've worked for financial institutions. I've worked for mining conglomerates. I've worked for pharmaceutical giants in my country, and I actually mean giants. I mean like top 5 in all of these spaces. I'm currently working in automobile. I'm working in pharmaceuticals. I'm working in travel as well with large clients. And there are always things that are going to be, immoral that those companies are doing that I know even outside of my work, right? Because I do have quite an inquisitive streak about me, so I always want to know what these companies are doing, especially if I am creating stories about them. It is a part of my job to actually understand what they're doing on the ground, and that entails knowing both the good and the bad, because I need to divert away from the bad, right? I need to create an image that tries to subvert the fact that there are some things that they're doing that are wrong. I don't see that as being in that sense immoral, because it's a part of my job. It's really what I'm hired to do.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you read the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, etc., you can kind of like utilize the concept of self in all marketing materials, because when the audience or the user views the advertisement or the publishing post, they're intrigued. It's like you're offering an essence or an aura by discussing the divine. And it works every time, and you see a lot of it in symbols in marketing. They won't say the secret part out loud. They'll just utilize a symbol to attract either consciously or subconsciously, if you know what that symbol represents. But yeah, books are great for, you know, coming up with the or I don't know. I'm just saying that, you know what evergreen is in advertising? It's like a white label standardization. But even green, you know, even evergreen still in some ways deals with the concept of the divine self. Anyways, I can read a brief excerpt from the Upanishad for you if you want, but I'm gonna head out of here and go to the gym and start my life day outside of my clown house hypnosis.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, this is the Upanishads. And so Bhargava Vaidarbhi asked him, Master, how many are the bright ones that uphold being, which illumine this? Which of them again is chiefest? He answered him, shining ether is that bright one, air and fire, and water and earth, voice, mind, sight, hearing. They, illumining, declare we uphold this ray, establishing it. And life, the chiefest among them, said, cherish not this delusion, for I verily, dividing myself fivefold, uphold this ray, establishing it. They were incredulous. Life proudly made as if to go out above, and as life goes out, all the others go out, and as life returns, all the others return. As the bees all go out after the honeymaker's king when he goes out, and return when he returns, thus did voice, mind, sight, and hearing, joyful they sing the praise of life. He warms as fire, as sun and the rain god, the thunderer, wind and the earth, substance, the bright one. What is not, and what is immortal? Like spokes in a wheel's nave, all this rests in life. Songs and liturgies and chants, sacrifice and warrior and priest. Thou, life as Lord of beings, movest in the germ, and thou thyself art born from it. And to thee life these beings bring the offering, thou who art set firm through the lives. Thou art the tongued flame of the bright ones, the first oblation of the fathers. Thou art the law of the sages, the truth of sacrificial priests. Thou art the thunderer, life, with his brightness. Thou art the storm god, the preserver. Thou movest in the mid-space as the sun. Thou art master of the stars. When thou descendest as rain, these thy children, life stand rejoicing. We shall have food, they say, according to our desire. Thou art the exile, life, the lonely seer, the eater, the good master of all. We are givers of the first offering. Thou art, Father, to us the great breath. Thy form that is manifested in voice and in hearing and in sight, and the form that expands in mind, make it auspicious, go not out. All this in life's sway, all that is set firm in the triple heaven, guard us as a mother her sons and his fortune, give us wisdom. That's a Vedic master. That's from the Upanishads. So it like deals with nature and consciousness and self, but it's
the unity of existence. I think that particular bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the thing is like you may hate the Muslim, but you got to know that that person is part of the creation. So if you reverse engineer that, you'll figure out that there is a unified system and that your anger and disgust towards it is not necessarily the accurate response to the vulgar person. Meaning if you're a good person, you were created for that bad person. You just got to be aware of that. And hopefully you can rectify that person without destroying yourself in the process.
Absolutely. You see, when I said what I said, I specifically talked about Islam. You see, because I love to make the distinction between ideas and people, right? Just like I love to make the distinction between countries and people, because the people that I meet are often quite nice, but that really does not have much to do with let's say in the two specific cases that I've given, one is religion and the second one is nationality, right? And those two things I specifically talk about because my country happens to have quite a nasty relationship with our neighbors, right? Especially with Pakistan and with China, and with Pakistan there is a religious aspect to it as well, right? But for both cases, I don't really have a problem with Muslims, right? I don't have a problem with Pakistanis, but I have a problem with the state of Pakistan, and I have a problem with Islam, right? Because the people, regardless of their beliefs, in my cultural worldview, they're all a part of the same thing, right? You don't need to believe. I don't need others to believe, right? I myself don't believe, right? But in my cultural context, it's okay. It really doesn't matter if somebody does not believe in your worldview. That has nothing to do with you, right? Your responsibility lies towards your own, right? And in the collective good, your actions must, in totality, improve outcomes for everybody. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in, there are certain ideas that need to be rooted out, just like there are in every point of time in history, right? There are ideas that go out of control, and you need to rein them in. We did that in World War II. Immediately after that, we had a huge cold conflict in order to decide which one was actually evil, because that's really in most cases how it works out. We've done before that as well. It's just a matter of time, and I think time is finally coming. It's happening. In this specific context, you can say that it's happening in Europe, but I'd say that that's not quite accurate, because it's happening in India as well. It's happening in China as well, right? It's happening in the Middle East. If you look at how the elites of the people of Arabian countries are thinking today, you will see that they are very progressive. You look at the decisions that Mohammed bin Salman is making, right? We like to call him a closet atheist in the circles that I run in, because he has basically done more harm to the orthodoxy of Islam than anything has done in the last 500 years, let's say. Just to give you some idea of the magnitude of the changes that he's making in Islamic culture as well as in Saudi Arabian culture, and that is quite important, because as the holders of the two holiest places of Islam, what they say has a lot of sway in the Islamic world. I'm not saying it has complete sway, because that's really not true, but they are very important cultural markers, and if they are changing, who's to say? Look at Israel, for instance, right? We talk about what's happening, but in reality, all of the Islamic countries around this conflict haven't really done much to oppose Israel, right? Actually, they really haven't done anything. All they've done is made shallow statements. But when Iran attacked Jordan, actually, it was Jordanian planes that took down a lot of those drones and things like that, and missiles. The Israelis, in a lot of cases, didn't even have to respond in some areas, because the other countries were taking care of it. So it really seems to me that there is a disconnect between the ruling class and the populace at large in these countries, and that is happening because the elites actually radicalized these people when it was in their favor for them to hate Israel, right? But today it really is not in their favor to do that. And that dissonance is something that I have observed really coming to forth with this conflict in particular, but even before that, with the signing of the accords and things like that, those were things that were quite monumental, to say the least.
have you ever heard of axioms or aphorisms?
Yeah.
I've got this book. It's called The Viking Book of Aphorisms, a personal selection by W.H. Auden. And, I could read you some of these on nature. They're very interesting. This is
actually, I have to unfortunately go for dinner. There are guests at home, and I can't be excused any longer, unfortunately. But it was a pleasure to speak to you. I have, okay, you already followed me. I have added you back.
Okay, sounds good.
I do look forward.
Okay, have a great dinner, and God bless. Take care. Have a great evening.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, take care, Neil.
I'll see you around.
Okay, bye. Hi, everybody. I have an incredible new investment opportunity for you. For just $100 today, I can give you $1,000 back by next Friday. Hit me up in the DMs. This is Adrian Dittman. Scam me, baby. Kickbait. Okay, this is Angry Clown.
ईश्वर ही कर रहा है, मतलब मैं कुछ नहीं कर रहा हूँ. इसको बोला जाता है ईश्वरार्पण बुद्धि. और इसका जो भी फल मिलेगा ईश्वर ही लेगा, मुझे कुछ नहीं देगा.
मतलब जो मिलेगा आपको, लेकिन उसमें आपको सुख और दुख नहीं होना है. आपको जो भी मिल रहा है वो ईश्वर के प्रसाद की तरह, प्रसाद बुद्धि की तरह आपको ग्रहण करना है. वो ईश्वर प्रसाद नहीं,
अगला जन्म मिलेगा तो
मतलब
statistics, right? The H-1B recipients may be going for jobs that are so highly in demand that people are having a problem with the professionals that are finding enough professionals in America that are qualified, and so they are seeking out H-1B visas.
This may also be the case.
I think that's logical as well.
No, that is
because that would be no undercutting.
You have to get used to.
If that was the case, there would be no undercutting.
You have to. No, that is incorrect. What you just said. You have to get accustomed to the idea that there could be more than one plausible. In fact, most things that happen are overdetermined. There's a variety of causes. The cause that I just gave you is a fact because I know people in this position who have expressed this to me, particularly academics. One field that is greatly affected by this is the academy. So people who work their way up through the academic world here feel undercut by foreign students who are willing to work harder for less money and in worse conditions. That's a marketplace problem for the people who are from here. That's their objection. So that also weighs into why people object to people coming from abroad with these H-1 visas. And I agree with you that we also have a labor shortage here, and we also need foreign workers. So both can be true.
No, both can't be true.
Yes, both can be true.
There is a labor shortage, and there's no undercutting. Anybody who says there is undercutting is being illogical. They both can't be true, Norm. It's either they are undercutting, and it's this is objective. Totally objectively, and I'll finish.
So this is what you've missed.
I'm a white person. I'm white, and I'm actually white. Okay, I'm asserting my white privilege. It's a white supremacist society. You have to let a white person talk once in a while, and it could be true in some sectors and not in others. Right? There could be undercutting in some sectors and not in others. There's plenty of evidence, for example, that in software, some companies work really hard to get around the requirement that they attempt to hire a native worker. They have a completely pro forma way. You need to stop that, MJ.
That was to your white privilege and the white.
Okay, no, you need to stop it. You need to show respect to the white man.
Absolutely not.
All right, I'm the white man. You're respecting the white
I've
man.
never respected.
All right. Okay, well, I'm moving.
Wait, you don't respect
Come back
people
up.
because of the
But
color
that
of
is
the
profanity.
yeah,
That is profanity. That is profanity. And that's unacceptable. All right. So it can be true in some sectors and not in others. Hey, let me. No, I didn't get rid of it. Okay. Let me finish what I'm saying. All right. It can be true in some sectors and not in others. You're going to have to go on a case-by-case basis to evaluate that. Certainly, the way the program is set up, it's supposed to be illegal to do any undercutting. There is going to be a lot of paper trail that's going to show that no undercutting is occurring, even if it's happening, because they at least have to make a show of not undercutting. So that's, I think Norm could be wrong. Maybe there's no undercutting, at least the way the program works. It's not supposed to occur.
Well, you know more about the software world, and I know more about the world of academia. In the world of academia, it's happening. Now, what were you saying about software? That they go to
Excellent
great lengths
stage
to avoid
management.
that, or to avoid the appearance of it? What were you saying?
There are some companies, that apparently advertise. They will do this whole song and dance of trying to find an American candidate. They'll interview several Americans, and the whole idea is none of them will be qualified enough. So now we have to hire a guy from somewhere else, right? And
So they're gaming the system.
Yeah, they're gaming the system. Yeah.
Because it's
I suspected that was happening in software. Because frankly, if you have a person from India who's coming from a less robust economy, we know that they are really good in technology. They have good training, and they're willing to work for less in worse conditions. But that can be a problem for people. So again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. Quite the opposite. I'm very happy with the Indian people who came here and all the stuff that they're doing. There are a lot of Indian cardiologists, for example. I think we need more doctors. We need more cardiologists and stuff. There is a problem if they, like we are all saying, if they are willing to work for less money in worse conditions, because that then makes the conditions worse, or it means it's for everybody, or it means that people from here are not going to get the job.
Right.
I'm not saying.
Wait, Dominic.
Yes.
There's
like
Adrian Tidman down in the chat. That's Edmund. Can we remove him from the room, please?
6 for 6, baby. 6 for 6. 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 6 for 6.
I wanted to make it.
Normal. If you look in the chat and just click on his profile, you can remove and block him from there.
Stop eating, Adams. Stop eating, Adam.
I don't see him in
Adrian,
please leave because
could you please leave? He screams like a woman.
You play identity politics all the fucking time. You love to victimize yourselves as a white woman, and that the left makes it all about race. The left makes it all about race. You make yourself the white woman in every single conversation when it's convenient. And that's why I'm not gonna lie. And I told you this. This isn't a surprise, Monica. I told you this the last time we had this conversation. I've lost respect for you.
Oh, okay. Well, same. So,
No respect at all. No respect at all.
Just give it time. Just give it time.
Oh, what you mean she didn't deserve it? She asked me. I didn't know. Don't make me seem like a bully.
Another brutal takedown.
Honest response.
How does Monica endure
No,
such
Monica, make no mistake about it. It's not about
roast?
ego. I'll be the first to admit you did hurt me, but it wasn't my ego that you hurt. It was the very fact that
How does
treated you as a
Monica?
friend.
Oh, hey, Soren.
You used to.
I roasted your ass yesterday. I'm gonna roast your ass again.
Clubhouse because I've gotten clipped and it's a big fucking deal. I got the whole of TBBH to send email after email to get your account back in the day. That's how our relationship started. This was in season 2 of Clubhouse when Sarah Fox was fucking Donut. Back then,
Soren,
right?
come back. I'm going to create a room. It's going to be called The Roast of Soren. Let's do it a little bit later, but I'll roast you up real good. We'll get El Normo in there. I'll let you say what you want to say, but the primary focus will be to roast you.
I said this is one of the best.
We'll call it The Roast of Soren, an IRGC shill.
Because of egos. You don't think it's been reciprocal? That I haven't stood for you when they've called you guys debate bros and said that y'all don't have substance or style or intelligence behind your debates? What are you talking about, Huey?
I have no, and that's okay, and that only goes to further my point, Monica. From the way you were moving, I was under the impression that we had one type of dynamic. But the day that you hit me up in my back channel, right, curious about why I gave you the feedback that I gave you in a particular room, and it wasn't even particularly harsh feedback. It was actually feedback about your argument and nothing about you. But you hit me up in the back channel. Actually, before you hit me up in the back channel, you said, "Why didn't I back channel this feedback to you?" Remember that, right? I said, okay, cool, fair enough. If that was my faux pas as a friend, I'm going to respect that. Do you know who turns around and does the same exact shit, but adds on extra spice and makes the feedback about me rather than the point that I was making?
We've done it, my nigga.
So ever since then, it's like, okay, I understand. It's my fault. I'll take responsibility. Okay, I'm not a victim. I was stupid to think. Right, I was stupid to think that the nature of the relationship we had was of a certain respect level. You can say it's ego, you can say it's whatever. I'm not above my. I'm not so proud that I can't say that I wasn't hurt by the way you conducted yourself when you started to criticize me instead of my arguments in general. When you started to do that weird shit where you say, "Oh, you people X, Y, and Z," rather than addressing the points that I was making, and start saying, "You're only saying that because you're X, Y, and Z." I'm like, why would you? Since when did we have that kind of dynamic where you can just judge me and criticize me openly when I don't do that to you? Right? I've always addressed your points, never you as a person. But since that's the game you want to play, I'm okay. I've learned the standard. You've taught me how you want to be treated. You want me to address you as a person.
Nigga loves the heat in the
That's what we're
winter.
going to start doing. Start addressing you as a person.
She's not
Fuck your
thick
arguments.
boned.
Huey, that was never my intention. And the fact that
She's not thick boned.
like I vaguely remember this.
It's
looking
called
in the back
all
channel,
fat.
I've got a few accounts. I'm missing it.
Absolute
But I tell
unit.
people that I value and respect. It's
called all fat. Absolute unit.
Don't put it out
It's
on
not thick bone. It's called all fat. Absolute unit.
and then offer an apology.
Another convo and debate about nothing.
No.
Did I?
Wait, in the back channels or after that? Or after that?
Another convo and debate about nothing. This is awesome.
This is the second time. Last
This
time
is
we talked
awesome.
about this, you didn't apologize. And here's the thing, Monica. I don't care for
The
apologies.
my nigga roast.
Okay. Then
I'm not asking
This is
for apologies.
awesome.
I'm only answering your
The my
question.
nigga roast.
To treat you the way I'm treating you. You don't need to apologize. You just need to be clear.
If I remember, you offered me the insult publicly, and I said, "Hey, if you have a criticism for me, or you're doing like, I don't think I deserve a personal attack."
No. Do you remember what the argument was about?
Do you?
I criticized the right. I never said shit about you. Never said shit about you. That's why I was confused when you told me to say what I said. But then at some point you hit me up in the back channel, and then that's when I clarified that. Look, okay, fair enough. You might have felt like that was directed to you personally, but I was making a general criticism about the right and how the right plays identity politics. The
Low
right
IQ
does the same
versus
things
low
that the left are
IQ
doing, and I don't
equals
see anything wrong with
emotions.
that.
Well, so fair enough. And then we're almost done with this sidebar, and we can go back to whatever we were talking about before.
Convo about
So-
nothing.
So I
Extreme
told you
pathetics.
that you don't even believe the argument that you're framing, that Daniel
Extreme pathetics.
I don't believe you think Daniel Penny was a vigilante. I framed my argument that said he was a vigilante and said he was a good Samaritan. And I criticized you on your argument, and I said this is not typical excellence that I've come to expect from you.
That's got nothing to do with the argument, Monica. That's the issue. I don't have a problem with you saying that I misframed you. An argumentative issue is an argumentative issue. It's when you do that extra shit where it's like, oh, this is not the Huey that I've come to expect of excellence. I'm disappointed in you. When you do that type of shit, that has nothing to do with our argument.
This isn't new. She does the same thing to me. Whenever I have a piece of feedback for her behavior and I'm dissatisfied with the way she's acting, she does the exact same thing to me. She's in my back channel. She's like, I can't believe you would do that.
I don't even know if it's talking, and I don't even recognize the voice. But you admitted it, that you are sacrificing quality of argument for performance. And you admitted it to everyone.
Wait, hold on. Let's be clear. Give the context for why I admitted it. It was in response to you already having crossed that line, and so I'm providing justification for it at that particular point in time. But make no mistake about it, Monica. Me saying what I said has nothing to do with you being justified in making a personal characterological attack, and you've done this several times. That's the thing. I never just freak out on people just because they do it one time, right? That's not how I move, right? Generally speaking, like the way I address, for example, King, or the way I address Brad, the way I address Lion, is based on repetitive behavior because I'm trying to establish a dynamic between these people in general. Once that dynamic is set, then this is what I expect going forward, and this is what they can expect from me. There's certain types of jokes that I'm not going to tell to King, right? Despite the fact that he'll hear me tell them to other people, right? I established patterns within relationships. You broke the particular pattern. You let me know that this is now the nature of our relationship. So from now on, I'm letting you know, you don't have to apologize. You don't have to be sorry. You're disappointed in me, and I'm telling you, I've stopped giving a fuck. What I'm going to start doing is every argument or debate we have, I'm going to find a way to tie it to an ineptitude, a characterological ineptitude within you, as well as a spiritual one. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Okay, have you found any yet?
Several. Your hypocrisy. You are the biggest victim of all time. The greatest victim of all time.
Okay.
That's actually truthful.
What an incredible projection.
Explain how.
Jesus Christ, we've
I
done
can do
it
it
1,000 times.
Monica, I'm disappointed. You have to explain this again.
Huey, you're doing it again, though. This is what she wants, Huey. She just wants to be the center of attention, whether it's negative or positive.
Is this an intervention
It
room?
doesn't matter. She's going to consistently continue down this track because, again, something in her real life is not fulfilled, and she's going to actually continue until she's done. And then she's going to cry. She's probably reporting you now for bullying her. And then she does that shit over and over and over and over again.
Okay.
You should mute up.
Brad, accurate analysis, 100.
I tried to defend you,
Better yet, go to the gym.
Oh, it was Stilgar.
Better yet, get off Clown House, go to the gym.
I'm glad we had that conversation. Oh, boy, I would say.
Let me just say for the record, I have the humility to admit that I might get certain things wrong. This is my perspective, and if you want to dispute it, refute it, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, it's all good. I think
Solid, all good. Do you see what Louis sees?
do I see what Huey sees about you?
Yes.
Monica's going to start
Look,
crying.
at the end of the day, I think
Be delicate.
I never will see you like that. I'm an asshole.
Be delicate.
All right. Monica, it's all right. Listen, you come on home to the plantation. I got some work for you.
Be delicate. Monica's going to start crying. Be delicate.
Relationship with Jacobus is not the same as Huey's relationship with Jacobus, and so on and so forth. And we all develop patterns
words within those relationships that I do think people need to be cognizant of, because when you do, like you pointed out, if there's something that breaks in that pattern, things can change. You know, that's literally what has happened with several people in here, with myself, just looking, just reflecting, right? I would even say with Guava, when I was talking to Nathan, I'm essentially describing how Guava's pattern for me changed, and that's how things got so much better, right? And I think that's important when people can recognize patterns. They need to fix them or unfortunately break them. Well then, you know,
she thinks she has a higher IQ and a better analysis of the situation, which is probably true.
I'm good with you, but that doesn't seem to be the case with other people in here. And so, you know, and these are people who I fuck with, like Barack. This fellow Nigerian, I fuck with Barack. I find it very interesting.
Because this is the lowest IQ room in Clown House.
It's interesting, I don't know why, but that's the case with him. And all I'm saying, Monica, is just be cognizant of that people have a view of you and how they see it.
Okay, so when Brad
You know that's
Brad
is not real money. They're lying.
herself over this attention, let's keep it real. I find that offensive.
Monica, your opinion of yourself is all that matters. These clown opinions are useless.
No one has ever sexualized you. That's not even possible.
It's gross and inappropriate the way you dehumanize women.
Go read Marcus Aurelius, Monica.
I do you that way. That's fucking 100% true. I don't do lying or lady lying like that. I don't do she-wolf. I don't do anybody else. And you are trying to draw them in saying, please protect me, because again, you're the victim. You opened your fat retarded mouth.
Go read Marcus Aurelius, Monica, and stop this roast.
He just hates all women. And you say this repeatedly, when in fact,
You're just digging your...
I just don't like you. You fat piece of shit.
You're just digging your own grave.
Tally does the same, Monica. So
I don't like how they talk to you. It's
He's
evil.
clown.
They would have talked to lady
Grave
like that. And I
diggers.
You need some saving too, bitch ass nigga.
He's clown grave diggers.
I was wrong for how I spoke to your wife. And we shouldn't be speaking to Monica like this.
True diggers.
She ain't nobody white. She has no title. What are you talking about?
That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's daughter. Yo, Nathan, the way this nigga Huey chewed Monica a new asshole and how these niggas jumped her is sick, my nigga. It's fucking sick.
Tell the full story. And this is that shit that makes me feel like a lot of you niggas are slimy. But let me not say a lot of you niggas, just a couple. Because you never tell the full story. You do this weird thing where you
sick room full of diggers.
No.
True picnickers.
Listen, I'm the last born of the family. I'm not going to be outdone by the second born who everyone fucking forgets. Just like how you're forgotten in the coup. Like, this is the reality. When it comes to Father Nathan, he wants to know, Father Nathan, what actually happened, comrade, is Monica asked me a direct question about why I felt uncomfortable being modded in a room with her. I proceeded to tell her why. She proceeded to answer follow-up questions. And all I did was give her honest feedback on this august Feedback Friday. Nobody came for Monica. She's not a fucking victim. She asked for it.
She is a victim. I want to speak to a lady like that.
She was a clown.
See, like, the things with Monica is that she never actually realizes what drives you to it. And then when the incident occurs, and then it's repeated, and she continues to do it, then she cries, it's disgusting, it's mean. But you know what? You brought it on yourself. You kept poking. You kept doing it. You kept trying
Even
to right down to
Baruch.
and you did all the
Fat Camp Survivor! Fat Camp Survivor!
You danced out there, you did your fucking rain dance, you poured water on it, you grew it, and now you get to deal with it. Too fucking bad.
And let's not forget the context. All of this happened in the context of King
asking me, or not asking me, addressing a concern he had with me and the way I quote unquote gas Tally or sometimes, right, or Clay's Tally, which is fair, which is a fair criticism.
Really?
But I was explaining to King that the reason I didn't go up in that particular room is that I would have been more comfortable if anybody else had started the second Chillism room, had it not been for Monica and King. Bear witness. Tell me if I'm lying. Did I not say that? But that's a story for another day. Don't have to address that here.
Yeah. That is correct.
Yeah, that exactly. And then Monica, you wanted to know, and so I told you.
Because I can't learn anything from this digger.
Because I invited you to join the stage. The whole point was when Tally removed the players.
You didn't listen to what he said.
My nigga. Baby voice, girl. Baby voice. Baby voice. My nigga. Baby voice.
Come on, y'all heard it. I didn't get a chance. Go ahead, Monica.
So that night when Tally was using one of her crash out coins and she and Shy were going at it, as a mod, Steve removed Shy from the room, which is not something you're supposed to do. It was a mutual
This is so
combat
pathetic.
situation, and she abused the back.
This is so pathetic. Jesus Christ.
Guava said what happened to Mud and Shy.
This is so pathetic. Jesus
That
Christ.
was not okay. That's not a
If you this is comedy, right?
and no one, Nathan and Nala.
This is comedy, right?
A new room needed to be started, but they were both away from the app. So I was saying that to uphold the
I'm not the only one laughing, right?
I opened a public room.
This is comedy, right? Jesus Christ. This is so pathetic. Baby voice.
And I invited all the people that were modded in that previous room, and I was going to mod badge them. Yui, because he and I have a disagreement in his debate style, stayed in the goo, and I didn't know why until just now. Now that he's reminded me that he can't take constructive criticism from me, that's no problem.
Is my nigga a
I'll
kindergarten
stop giving
teacher?
it to him. I no longer care.
Is my
about
nigga
quality
a kindergarten
and standards
teacher?
of Huey's debates in here. And so we're moving on. Thank you for your time.
And before we move on, I just want to be super clear. I just want to be super clear so that we don't mischaracterize this. I have zero problems with people having any kind of critical feedback or criticism for my debate style. I have a problem when they decide to turn that criticism into a criticism about me and my character in general. There's lots of people who do that though, and there's a certain
Is my
response.
nigga a kindergarten
Those people
teacher?
who criticize my character get out of me. And what I'm trying to point out, Monica, is you are not going to be treated different in my eyes as the way I'm going to treat Concrete, as the way I treat Samoa. All of these niggas who have criticism about me personally, I'm going to roast you the same way I roast those niggas. The difference is with those niggas, they can laugh it off. If you can't laugh it off, you're going to find yourself again.
I'm getting therapy right now because of you.
Hey, I just wanted to say, just to clear the air, I'm glad that Huey has acknowledged that every attempt at an offensive attack has been minuscule in its effect, because we're able to just laugh.
That was a very funny joke.
Everyone PTR, look at my PTR, everyone. Father Nathan. Father Nathan, please let me be your favorite. Jacobus has flattered you in multiple ways.
Absolutely, fuck this nigga.
Please.
Cheetos!
Let me come to America.
Cheetos, baby.
For 50 cents a day, you can have a genius in chillism.
Nathan, you're gonna have to get some ointment because there has been so much rump kissing that your butt cheeks are gonna be like raw.
Okay. It can never be me. Y'all really be doing your most. Like, y'all really are all on your hands and knees. And I don't know why y'all really on your hands. Everything. Let me talk to
Take that in, y'all. The gayest nigga here think he wouldn't even be the way you all are.
Yo, pause, bro.
He said, I want y'all to take that in.
Yeah, this ain't your first time taking it.
Hey, Concrete, you in the Matrix, bro.
Yeah, Concrete, you in the Matrix.
I am perfectly, tell you the truth.
Then he was finished.
Yo, am I better? Am I better?
They're trolling you.
Don't listen to stepfather Nathan.
So my feedback for Huey is, whilst he is typically a bad debater in terms of how he constructs his arguments, in this debate
Here
with
we
Monica,
go.
he did
Word to word.
garner some extra points for me because Monica offered him an opportunity
Monica, you gonna listen to the replay?
politely declined and gave her
Monica, you gonna listen to the replay? Good luck. So then what?
I have to commend him for that. Even though that in no way, shape, or form improves his honesty or his ability to debate, at least he has a backbone and didn't become Monica bitch, even though he's cheerleading to
To
become
learn
somebody.
what? To not be involved with these diggers?
Yeah, that was funny.
Then pay attention
That was a bomb.
to what you say.
That whole was speaking fat.
And pay attention to what you say.
I manipulate and treat
I
people.
don't know, but yeah, maybe another one.
Let me give you an example. Samoa, do you think it's fair for the small rats not to be able to play? Sometimes the big rats should allow space for the small rats to be able to play because if the small rats can't play, the small rats aren't actually having fun. So don't you think you should put
Let the roast continue.
Samoa. Fuck no.
There you go.
But when you leave, he be saying yes.
Right.
I have a question for the room. Why is it that when people ask for feedback, nobody has anything to say? But because Monica decided to ask Huey a question and he gave his honest opinion, now everybody jumping on the bandwagon, and now all of a sudden y'all got feedback from Monica. Where's your feedback every other week?
Don't do that, lady. Don't pretend like don't pretend like
I'm saying in general, Concrete.
Lady,
It's just like Concrete. I feel the same way. I feel the same way about you. Is if somebody brings you up about what they personally feel about you, but ain't nobody else said nothing all day or last week or the week before that, and then all of a sudden they got something to say about you. I'm like, where that energy last week?
Listen, lady, flattery is not gonna persuade me, even though I appreciate it.
I'm being serious.
Hold on. Monica constantly gets the smoke from men, women, and children. Like, what is
Concrete is a digger.
Bullshit. You saw what she did to Stilgar. You see what she does on a
What
regular
she do to Stilgar?
All right, I'll tell you what she did to Stilgar. Stilgar, I think, laughed at a joke. And on let's say Monday, Tuesday, Monica caught Stilgar by himself and pushed him into
Go there now.
and told him, "Get in
Don't
there,
waste your
Monica."
time.
And he was like, nah, I'm not getting. He was. That's a fact, Shasha. That's a fucking fact.
Don't waste your time listening to my movie.
He said, no. You guys are
Just leave now.
That's a fucking
not say not a single word in the room, and there's like a bunch of people.
Get your fucking big mic, Sasha.
Just leave now. Free yourself from these diggers.
Once y'all admit that y'all love Monica's dick in your mouth, everything will be fine.
They love all that church y'all live in. Okay, so the whole point is, when Stilgar got confronted by Monica about him laughing at a joke, she didn't threaten to say his name, even though he was like, I don't want people saying my name. And then she fucking laid out his name 2 fucking times in that conversation because he laughed at a joke. And so that is Monica being diabolical, trying to make a bitch out of Stilgar and violating the friendship that they thought they had. Because he does look out for her as a good, clean white man.
Diabolical digger.
So that's the same exact fucking response that you just gave. And there has been a pattern established. Monica be looking for bitches. No.
But Nathan tell y'all don't dogpile. He don't let us dogpile individuals in here. He said don't dogpile, so don't dogpile.
I just commended
This room and all the diggers.
I'll give a
Pattern 24/7.
I'll give a critique on Nathan, if that's all right. So we can move it off of Monica because that's the whole purpose of this. Nathan needs to learn how to connect disciplines, especially with meanings of terms. So in the court ethical framework,
TV show on YouTube.
Called prejudicial.
Same pattern.
In reasoning discipline of framework, you can use a term called fallacious. So because a person doesn't understand these two things and they lack the ability to connect, they'll always think that they're disingenuous, and then they'll attribute that to your character. Then they'll try to devalue you. You guys have all shared the same experience, right? Just saying.
Nigga says fellatio.
Hey man, can we get this nigga out of here, Rich? Where you at, bro? No.
If fellatio wasn't what it was, it'd probably be an Italian pasta dish with extra sausage.
Italian ice cream. I was just about to say ice cream. I was just about to say a gelato or it would be a dessert.
What about Sardinitas?
I would have thought that it sounded something close to flamingo, and maybe so I would have thought maybe a type of bird.
Yeah, that's a good one, babe.
It's an Italian.
But I didn't think ice cream first. Huey, you probably were my brother in a past life.
I got some feedback. Or something you said that I just like how everybody else.
I know, it's fucked up.
Okay, this is called Going to the Gym Now, Pigs. How's your day going? Can we date this evening? Until next week, I'm feeling under the weather. Can we postpone our date this evening till next week? I'm feeling under the weather. Oh, how's your Friday going? How's your Friday going?
The original Silent Hill for PlayStation 1 is...
Greenland has been thrust into the international spot.
Good afternoon, beautiful. Enjoying the snow? Good afternoon, beautiful. Good afternoon. Enjoying the snow? Oh, shall we go to...
I have dealt with mental and emotional struggles for a very long time. I was also dealing with the fear of embracing the...
This is the special thing about Buddhism. Everything in Buddhism sounds negative. Let's put it this way. Let's suppose you engage yourself in a relationship with the Buddha, or with one. I mean, there are hundreds of Buddhas. One we call Gautama is just the historical Buddha that everybody knows about. But one Buddha leads to another, because as a result of his relationships with people, he turns them into Buddhas too, awakened people. Now you meet one of these people, and he's going to give you a rough time. But one of the Buddhas running around these days is Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti absolutely destroys everybody's religion. Why do you believe this? Why are you hanging on to that? Why do you want to insist that this idea is so? See? And he shows you that all your fixed formulations, all the ideas to which you cling, are spurious. And Buddhism was one of the ways of doing just that. So one might say simply this, to try and sum up what Buddhism is about. The word Buddha is derived from the root Bud in Sanskrit, B-U-D-H, which means to be awake. So the Buddha is the awakened man, the man who woke up. What does he wake up from? Obviously a dream. And what kind of a dream is this? Well, I would call it a state of hypnosis.
Let's go to the Botanic Gardens.
And this state of hypnosis, although I'm using hypnosis in a rather archaic sense of the word, is a state of being entranced, spellbound, fascinated, and this is called in Sanskrit avidya. A-V-I-D-Y-A. Vidya is knowledge in Sanskrit. And it is the root from which we get videre in Latin, to see, and so vision in English. So putting the A in front of it means non. Avidya, not seeing. Ignorance, where you see but you ignore everything that you're not looking at. When you put the beak of a chicken on a white chalk line And the chicken is fascinating. You can't get away from the short line.
Yeah, unless the guys approach you in the gym or if
So in the same way, our beats will put on the short line.
So they do where they find you on social media, follow you, slide in the DM.
Of attending to life by conscious attention alone. By the spotlight.
Do you understand how you're kind of intimidating them?
Yeah, but I think like even if this one is not unconscious, I think it's the vibe that I'm giving off. Maybe a little like Twitter style thing. I think I look a little intimidating. I'm not gonna lie.
You can approach them.
No, but I'm not looking for a boyfriend. I'm looking for a man.
He is awakened from that illusion, from that state of hypnosis, and he knows well, I can't put what he knows in any positive terms. Buddhism has no doctrines at all, but you have to believe it. I don't care what background you come from, whether you're a Roman Catholic or one extreme or a logical positivist at the other. Both are clinging to something, you see? And so the method of Buddhism is to knock out the underpinnings and say, well, not only do we not believe in anything, we don't even believe in not believing in anything. You know, you crawl into a hole and pull the hole in after you. But in this case, you do the exact opposite of that. That's a defensive move, to crawl into a hole. In this way, you crawl into great space and then pull the space out after you. And it's pretty rough. Because you can do it on what seems at first to be a merely intellectual level. So you can engage a group of people in discussion, and you can start whenever they propose an idea that is their sort of guiding principle of life, you demolish it, show that it doesn't hold water. And step by step you unearth, by talking with them, what are the fundamental ideas they're operating on. Everybody is. Everybody is a philosopher. Everybody has metaphysics, although they may not know what it is, because they've never examined it. But by this method, you bring it out and you demolish it. Now this suddenly, what seemed like a very nice intellectual discussion turns into sheer murder. People get really anxious. They develop all the trembles and the symptoms of extreme anxiety. And so they finally say to the guru, the teacher, well, heaven's sakes, what do you believe in? He says, I'm not proposing anything. I didn't set anything up. Well, how do you navigate? How do you exist? This is what's the problem. Because you see, what we're moving from, as I suggested a moment ago, we're moving from a state of affairs where we're accustomed to navigation on land to a state of affairs where we're in the water. And this is very critical for today because the impact of modern science on Western culture has been very similar to this. In Christianity, we sing hymns like How Firm a Foundation and Rock of Ages, Ein fester Burg, a mighty fortress is our God. We've something to stand on. The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord, you know. It is this firm thing. All right, suddenly all that disappears or becomes implausible. And we find ourselves swimming or sinking. Now, when you find that you're living in the midst of a universe of relativity, well, there's nothing you can hold on to. You've got to learn how to swim. And to swim, you've got to relax and stop grabbing. So this is what Buddhism does. When it says it's the art of let go, of non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you lose your appetite for dinner. It means simply that you stop grabbing. You get rid of stickiness. Stickiness in the sense of, for example, when a wheel has an axle that's too tight and it sticks. You want to loosen it up a bit. You don't want it too loose. You don't want it floppy. Like a lot of people, when you tell them to relax, they become